Chapter 87. Looking at Zhao Fu's departing figure, Wu Qingyang slightly smiled and said, "Lil Shi, if it's Zhao Fu, you won't be able to completely control him." "Oh." Ingshi felt quite surprised and asked, "Why is that?" Wu Qingyang turned to look at Ingshi and smiled domineeringly as she said, "Because he's the man I've set my eyes on." "Did something happen between the two of you?" Ingshi lightly laughed as she asked. Some small things happened, but I'm more interested in his potential. His golden scales aren't just for show, and he has the potential to become a dragon. I have a feeling that his name will be known throughout the world in the future," Wu Qingyang replied as she smiled. "Really? Why don't I feel that way?" Ingshi asked curiously. Wu Qingyang looked at Ingshi as she replied, "That's because you haven't seen through him yet. My feelings have always been right. If you don't believe me, we'll wait for that day." Hearing this, Ingshi lightly nodded. Zhao Fu had no idea that the two women were talking about him. Right now, he just wanted to be an unremarkable figure and develop Qin Village. After returning to his room, Zhao Fu took out the Heaven Awakened stone and entered the Heaven Awakened world. By now, the 4 scouting teams had returned. Apart from bringing back a large amount of money and equipment, there were also 2 S-grade corpses, 100 or so A-grade corpses, 900 or so people, 2 normal grade city creation stones, and 1 silver grade city creation stone. This made Zhao Fu feel quite happy. The 10 kings' undead cavalrymen had turned 1,000 or so skeleton soldiers. Of course, these skeleton soldiers weren't as powerful as the skeleton soldiers in the passageway, but they were definitely more powerful than normal skeletons. Most of the skeleton soldiers were still holding weapons like iron swords and sabers. Now, Zhao Fu had 30 villages, and they had around 18,000 people. With so many people, he didn't have to worry about food. With the various stat bonuses from Qin Village, the crops would mature in a month, and the production would be doubled. The territory of Qin Village was more than 300 square miles. The crops planted in it all enjoyed the attribute bonus of Qin Village. Therefore, food was the least lacking resource for many forces. Zhao Fu did not continue to expand the army, as 5,000 soldiers were already enough. With the king's undead cavalry's 3,000 skeletons, it would definitely be enough. Moreover, because Zhao Fu had only obtained the king's ring not too long ago, he only had around 20,000 EXP in Qin's village. Zhao Fu only had 400 achievement points, so there was still some time before he could level up. However, he should be able to level up even faster. After all, he had the buff of 4x EXP and 2x achievement points. Finally, there was the matter of the spirit refinement plan. Because it required crystals to refine the corpses and some other things, it had been delayed. At that moment, Baishan came up to report that the research on the language stone steel had been completed, and Zhao Fu went to take a look with interest. Language stone steel. Currently, there are Chinese, Elf, Orc, Dwarf, Kobold, Goblin, and Gnome languages that could be learned. Looking at this, Zhao Fu nodded in satisfaction. Now that he had this language stone steel, he would be able to learn all of the languages recorded on the stone steel. Zhao Fu did not need to find translators, and even if they were not his subjects, as long as they learned the language, they would be able to understand and speak it. After learning all of the languages apart from Chinese, Zhao Fu ordered Baishan to research intermediate teleportation channels. After all, if he wanted to leave the Forest of Horrors, he could not rely on a system main city and had to rely on his own power to break through the barriers between regions. Basic teleportation channels could only teleport people 500 kilometers away, and without an intermediate or advanced teleportation channel, it would be impossible to open a path to another place. After taking care of the matters in Qin Village, Zhao Fu returned to Holy Light City. He was quite surprised to see that the entire Holy Light City was filled with a festive atmosphere. There were all sorts of flowers and ribbons on the streets, and the indigenous residents all had joyful smiles on their faces. What was going on? Was Holy Light City celebrating some sort of festival? Zhao Fu wondered as he returned to the Westfall restaurant. Only after hearing about it did he realize what was going on. This was a festival in the Heaven Awakened world called the 10,000 Flower Festival. The The 10,000 Flower Festival lasted for 7 days, and during those 7 days, all of the flowers in the heaven-awakened world would bloom together. There would also be something called flower tiers, which could be used to exchange for countless items at a stone stele in a system main city. The indigenous residents said that this was a gift from the heavens, while Zhao Fu felt that it was an event in a game. After going to the center of Holy Light City, there was a stone stele there, and it was completely surrounded by people. After looking at it, Zhao Fu felt quite shocked. There were all sorts of rewards: legendary grade equipment, S-grade skills, gold-grade city creation stones, ultra-high-grade medicinal pills, and special items. Zhao Fu felt quite moved. However, this was a world-level event, which meant that everyone could participate. At the same time, indigenous residents could participate as well, making the competition quite intense. Even though these items were quite good, whether or not they could be obtained was another matter. The 10,000 Flower Festival would officially begin at midnight, and Zhao Fu teleported back to the Qin village and started to make preparations for the 10,000 Flower Festival. The other factions also did the same and started to make various preparations. At midnight, a large and round moon hung high in the sky. The bright moonlight made it so that even though it was nighttime, it was not dark at all. Under this beautiful moonlight, flowers slowly bloomed, and it was truly a scene of 10,000 flowers blooming at the same time. It was a dreamlike scene, and it was truly a beautiful night with a full moon. Among the many flowers, only a few of them had crystal-clear pearls that were as big as soybeans. They reflected the moonlight and looked quite beautiful. These were most likely flower tears. Zhao Fu ordered everyone to stop what they were doing, including the 4 exploration teams, and they all started to collect these flower tears. Because the Qin village brewed the 100-flower wine, they were quite familiar with the flowers in many places. The surrounding 100-kilometer radius area was under Zhao Fu's control, so there was not much competition, and almost no one dared to compete with Zhao Fu. This was a big advantage, and Zhao Fu was quite confident that none of the player factions in the Forest of Horrors would be able to compete with him. However, this was not necessarily the case for the system factions. Right now, every system main city had roughly 300,000 residents and 100,000 soldiers, for a total of 400,000 people. Most system main cities had around 1 million players. The next day, when Zhao Fu teleported back to Holy Light City, it wasn't just the player factions that were madly collecting flower tears. Even the system factions were madly collecting flower tears. Even the system main city's governmental factions sent most of their soldiers into the Forest of Horrors to collect flower tears, and no one dared to compete with them. Chapter 88. Many people were hurrying out of the city, and there were also many people yelling, 20 silver coins for a flower tear. I'll buy it for such a high price. Come and find me. Others were yelling, exchanging equipment and skills for flower tears is super worth it. You only have one chance. Others were yelling, whoever sells flower tears to our White Tiger gang will be one of our brothers in the future. We'll protect him and let him live a good life. There was even a woman who looked quite good yelling, whoever gives me 100 flower tears will be their girlfriend for a day. We could do anything. Right now, the outside of the system, main cities were filled with people, and it was a complete mess. The flower tiers outside the system main cities have been swept clean by players and indigenous residents, and not a single flower tier had been left behind. Just think about it. If 1 million or so people searched every inch of the ground, how could there be a single flower tier left behind? After all of the flower tiers near the system main cities have been swept clean, some people started to leave the system main cities, which made it even more dangerous. After all, not only did they have to be careful of other outlanders, but they also had to be careful of other people stealing them. Most people wouldn't hold back just because they obtained flower tiers. In front of such great benefits, most people wouldn't hold back. If someone was robbed, no one would help them. Only by bringing back flower tears and exchanging them for flower tier points would they be yours. Now, most people knew how valuable flower tears were, so they didn't plan to sell them. Occasionally, a few people would say that they wanted to sell flower tears, and a large group of people would immediately crowd around them. Most of the time, the system faction would end up winning. Zhao Fu also planned to use money or equipment to exchange for some flower tears. Even though Qin's village was quite far away and there was no competition, he still couldn't compete with the system faction. Ordinary people wanted to use flower tears to exchange for things that couldn't be bought with money, while ordinary factions wanted to exchange for city creation stone. What made the system faction go crazy were the 37 legendary grade equipment. Even in the system cities, the number of legendary weapons and equipment available could be counted on one hand. To players who didn't even have gold-grade equipment, it was even more attractive. Moreover, the first 3 pieces of legendary equipment were already half-epic grade. Some people had already created a legendary ranking based on the equipment's attributes and introduction. First, Sky Demon, sword-shaped weapon, half-epic. A weapon forged from the corpse of Sky Demon and contains Sky Demon power. Second, Dragon Soul, blade-shaped weapon, half-epic. A weapon forged from a dragon soul of a divine dragon and contains divine dragon's power. Third, Demigod, a hammer-shaped weapon, half-epic. It was originally an ordinary legendary weapon, but it has been stained with a large amount of demigod blood and contains demigod's power. Fourth, Blazing Sun, bowl-shaped weapon, legendary. A weapon forged from extreme yang stones and extreme yang flames. It contains sun's power. Number 5, 8 Mountains, shield-shaped armor, legendary. This armor is made from the heart of the 8 mountains and contains power of the 8 mountains. Number 6, Jin, staff weapon, legendary. A weapon held by Jin since birth, contains Jin's power. Number 7, Sacred Heaven, armor-shaped armor, legendary. This armor can only be worn by high-grade angels in the heaven realm. It contains Holy Light's power. Number 8, Thunder Tooth, axe-shaped weapon, legendary. A weapon forged from the teeth of a giant thunder beast. It contains Tribulation Lightning's power. Number 9, Chilling Soul, sword-shaped weapon, legendary. A weapon forged from thousands of chilling souls. It contains Extreme Cold's power. Number 10, Spirit Tree, staff-shaped weapon, legendary. A weapon forged from a white locust spirit tree that is over 1,000 years old. It contains Wood Spirit's power. These were the top 10 pieces of equipment on the legendary rankings. It could be said that countless people were envious and crazy about them. Zhao Fu was also envious, but the whole world was fighting over these pieces of equipment. Zhao Fu felt a lot of pressure as he thought about what to do next. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and teleported back to Qin village. Right now, the teleportation channel had 3 main functions. The first was to teleport from point A to point B, and it could be done with absolute accuracy. The second was to teleport randomly. After using the teleportation channel, one would be teleported to a random location. This was quite random. The third method was directional teleportation. You could choose a direction to teleport in. If you use the teleportation formation to teleport to the east, then after using the teleportation formation, you would appear somewhere in the east. Zhao Fu ordered everyone to stop what they were doing and continue to collect flower tears. He took Bai Shan and another scholar and used the third function of the teleportation channel to teleport to the north of the Forest of Horrors. Because basic teleportation channels could only teleport 500 kilometers away, Zhao Fu appeared in a mountainous region to the north of the Forest of Horrors. He was 500 meters away from Qin village, and Zhao Fu found a hidden place and ordered Bai Shan and the other scholar to quickly build a teleportation channel. Half an hour later, Bai Shan and the other scholar hurriedly finished building a teleportation channel. Following this, Zhao Fu took Bai Shan and the other scholar and used the third function of the teleportation channel to teleport another 500 kilometers to the north of the Forest of Horrors. This time, Zhao Fu appeared near a waterfall. Zhao Fu didn't waste any time and found a cave before ordering Bai Shan and the other scholar to quickly build a teleportation channel. After this teleportation channel was built, Zhao Fu took Bai Shan and the other scholar to teleport to the north of the Forest of Horrors. After doing this 20 or so times, they were teleported to a mountain forest. Just as they arrived, they heard the howls of wild beasts and 30 or so orcs carried a few wild boars and walked to the side. When the orcs saw Zhao Fu and the other two humans, they looked at each other before throwing down the wild boars and rushing at Zhao Fu with their weapons. This was a relationship between humans and outlanders. They were like fire and water. However, just as the orcs reached Zhao Fu, they saw that Zhao Fu was not afraid at all. He opened his mouth and spoke a few strange words, causing the orcs to immediately stop and look at each other in confusion. This human could actually speak the orc language. Zhao Fu's meaning was wait. Warriors of the orc race, I have something to tell you. Chapter 89. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, I've brought what you all want, a large amount of food and equipment. This matter is incredibly important, and I'm sure that your great Lord Kaki will be very willing to see me. The orc looked incredibly shocked as he asked, How did you know that we're the subjects of the great orc Lord Kaki? Zhao Fu realized that the system main city had a quest to kill Kaki, and it had given him a rough location. Since Zhao Fu had used teleportation channels so many times, he should have reached Kaki City's territory by now. Now that he had met these orcs, Zhao Fu immediately made the connection. Even though he had only guessed it before, now that the orcs had admitted to it, Zhao Fu was certain of his goal. However, he couldn't say this to these orcs, so Zhao Fu said, I've long since heard of Lord Kaki's fame, and I've brought gifts to pay a visit. I hope that you can take me to see him or report this matter to the higher-ups. After hearing Zhao Fu's words, the orc brought over a large number of gifts. With the orc's temperament, how could he listen to him? He savagely laughed and rushed up to take the gifts. Zhao Fu's expression did not change because he was no longer the same person. Not only had he become a king, but he had also obtained king's power. Looking at the charging orcs, Zhao Fu slowly drew the silver-grade sword at his waist. He casually slashed out. Shing! A massive sword chi slashed out, sending the 10 or so orcs flying back 10 or so meters. Zhao Fu's aura became abnormally powerful, and with his black cloak, he gave off an unfathomably mysterious aura, causing the orcs behind him to stop in their tracks. Can you go and report this matter now? Zhao Fu said calmly. These outlanders were unreasonable, and they only knew that strength was right. The 10 or so orcs who had fallen to the ground got up. Of course, Zhao Fu did not kill them, and the orcs' attitude changed. They no longer looked at him as if he was their prey, but as if they were looking at a powerful enemy. The remaining orcs continued to surround Zhao Fu, but a few of them left, most likely to report this matter to the higher-ups. Soon, a group of orc cavalrymen riding on giant gray wolves arrived before Zhao Fu. This was the first time that Zhao Fu had seen orc wolf cavalrymen, and he was quite shocked. Human, come with me, the leader of the orcs said as he looked at Zhao Fu. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. Luckily, Kaki wasn't an idiot and hadn't sent an army to kill him. However, to be able to establish an orc city like this, Kaki definitely wasn't an idiot, and he definitely had abilities that surpassed ordinary orcs. Following this, Zhao Fu followed this group of wolf cavalrymen to a city. The city looked quite boorish, and the city walls were made of massive stones. They were 15 meters tall, and there were many orc archers standing guard on the walls. The entire city looked quite majestic, and it suited the orcs quite well. After entering the city, there were all sorts of orcs on the streets. Seeing Zhao Fu, and the others, they all looked at the orc cavalry with curiosity. As Zhao Fu walked, he secretly observed the strength of the orc city. Apart from the orcs, there were also enslaved races such as goblins and gnomes. However, there weren't any humans, as the orcs would normally kill any humans they encountered. Apart from this, the orc city had many different types of soldiers: wolf cavalrymen, archers, and heavy shield bearers. However, very few orcs wore armor because they could only forge simple equipment. At the same time, they weren't a farming race and mainly relied on hunting. As such, the food and equipment that Zhao Fu offered were quite attractive to the orcs. As they continued onwards, Zhao Fu saw a few orc shamans on an altar, waving their wooden staffs that were covered with bones. Rays of green light shot out, and they seemed to be carrying out some sort of ceremony. Finally, the orc cavalryman brought Zhao Fu and the others to a large tent. The orc in the lead said a few words to the guards outside before letting Zhao Fu and the others in. After entering, Zhao Fu saw an elderly orc sitting at the front. Zhao Fu felt that he wasn't the city lord because he didn't give off the aura of a city lord. However, his identity definitely wasn't simple. The elderly orc's eyes were filled with wisdom, and he smiled at Zhao Fu before stretching out his hand toward Zhao Fu and the others as he said, "Esteemed guests, please sit." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and sat on a chair covered with bear pelts. "I'm called Gunador, Vice City Lord of Khaki City. I'm Khaki City's Vice Lord. You can tell me anything. I can make decisions in Khaki City," Gunador, the elderly orc, said as he introduced himself to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu didn't beat around the bush because he knew that Gunador was an understanding person. As such, he said, "Esteemed Vice Lord, I'm sure you know about the 10,000 Flower Festival. I brought a large amount of food and equipment to trade for flower tears, which are useless to you, because the exchange stone steels could only be found in system main cities. Even if the Outlanders obtained flower tears, they wouldn't be able to trade for them. As such, it could be said that flower tears were useless to the Outlanders." Zhao Fu had thought of this, which was why he had boldly come to Orc City to trade. Gunador smiled and nodded. Orcs didn't know how to grow crops, so they relied on hunting. Adding on the fact that all orcs had large appetites, they lacked food. At the same time, they didn't know how to forge exquisite equipment, so they could only use crude equipment. Since flower tears were useless to the Outlanders, it was better to trade them for things that the Orc City needed. Gunador knew this very well. He had long since guessed why Zhao Fu had come, which was why he had personally come to meet him. Now, it was time to discuss the exchange rate between flower tears and food. After bargaining for a while, Zhao Fu and Gunador concluded their conversation. Chatting with smart people was quite enjoyable. Zhao Fu took out thousands of kilograms of food and hundreds of pieces of equipment from his king's ring. These were all equipment that he had obtained from Qin Village, as well as equipment that he had obtained from the passageway. Only a small portion of the equipment was made from bronze concentrate. Now that Zhao Fu's king's ring had fused with the king armament shard, it had gone from 300 square meters of space to 10,000 square meters of space. After taking out these items, Zhao Fu smiled and cupped his hands as he said, "These are just a small greeting gift for Vice Lord. I hope we can work together in the future." Yes. Gunador smiled and nodded, because there would indeed be many opportunities for them to work together in the future. Following this, Gunador gave Zhao Fu a command medallion. With this command medallion, Zhao Fu could see him at any time, and Zhao Fu accepted the command medallion. Following this, Zhao Fu ordered by Shan and Gunador to build a teleportation channel to Qin Village. Zhao Fu had made this teleportation channel so that non-residents of Qin Village couldn't use it, and it was located in a hidden location. Now that he had 200,000 or so orcs working for him, Zhao Fu felt incredibly happy. Moreover, Zhao Fu didn't have to worry about the orc city growing too big, as that was something that the three main cities had to worry about. Perhaps it would be difficult for a single main city to take down the orc city, but with the three main cities working together, destroying the orc city would be a simple matter. Chapter 90. Of course, in order to not cause any trouble, Zhao Fu didn't personally show himself and had his subordinates take care of these matters. Zhao Fu also arranged for 50 or so people to gather information and observe the movements of other factions. They also took care of some things that Zhao Fu couldn't directly show himself. The person in charge of this operation was called Guo Binglin. Last time, Zhao Fu had given 2 S-grade orbs to the Goblin Warrior and 1 to him. Zhao Fu gave the order to Guo Binglin and told him not to reveal his identity at all costs. After all, this matter was related to the Orc City, and the system's officials would be very sensitive about it. Guo Binglin nodded and left. Following this, news of a mysterious faction buying a large amount of food spread through the 3 main cities. Many factions felt that this news was quite strange, But because they needed large amounts of money to buy flower tears, most factions had plenty of food. Normally, no one would want their food, but now that someone was buying it, many factions were happy to hear about this. As such, the various factions started to sell their food, and Zhao Fu didn't refuse any of them. After all, the price of food was quite low, and it didn't cost much money. Now, all the factions were collecting flower tears, and Zhao Fu was no exception. He also quickly collected flower tears because he also wanted the equipment on the legendary rankings. Late at night, Zhao Fu ordered Li Si to calculate their gains for the day. Li Si did a rough calculation and reported, "Your Majesty, this time, Qin village has collected roughly 100,000 flower tears." Hearing this, Zhao Fu sighed. If it was any other faction, they would be delirious with joy. But Zhao Fu could only sigh. Qin village already had a great advantage in obtaining 100,000 flower tears, but this was far from enough. One flower tier could be exchanged for 10 flower tier points, so 100,000 flower tiers were only worth 1 million flower tier points. The equipment on the legendary rankings was worth at least 30 million flower tier points, and the 10,000 flower festival only lasted for 7 days. Based on the 100,000 flower tiers per day, that would only be 7 million flower tier points, which was definitely not enough for Zhao Fu. Now, Zhao Fu could only place his hopes on the orcs. Moreover, among the flower tiers he had collected today, there were 5 special flower tiers. They weren't transparent, but rather pink. A pink flower tier could be exchanged for 1,000 flower tier points, which was equivalent to 100 flower tiers. Apart from this, 10 pink flower tears could be fused to obtain a type of Flower Fairy's Blessing. Flower Fairy's Blessing. Effectiveness, 3 years. Description, the Flower Fairy's Blessing. Increases the growth rate of flowers in your territory by 100% and slows the withering rate of flowers by 100%. There's a very small chance of attracting flower spirits. On the surface, this blessing didn't seem to be very useful. Apart from beautifying the environment, it didn't seem to do much. The only benefit to Qin's village was that they didn't lack ingredients to brew the 100-flower wine anymore. Zhao Fu felt that the best effect of this blessing was the last one, which was there's a very small chance of attracting flower spirits. What are flower spirits? Zhao Fu wasn't too sure about them, but he guessed that they were probably very useful creatures. At that moment, a soldier came up and reported that Xianru wanted to see him. Zhao Fu felt quite confused, but he still teleported back to Holy Light City. What is it? Zhao Fu went to the 3rd floor of the Westfall restaurant and saw Xianru sitting under the moonlight. There were some dishes and a bottle of wine on the table beside her. Xianru smiled and said, "Your Majesty, please sit and eat. We'll talk while we eat." Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and sat down at the table. At that moment, Xianru stood up and poured a cup of wine for Zhao Fu before asking, "Your Majesty, are you worried about the flower tears?" "Your Majesty, are you worried about the flower tears?" Zhao Fu smiled and said, "I really can't hide anything from you. I'm just feeling quite vexed about this matter. With the amount of flower tears we have right now, we won't be able to obtain a legendary grade piece of equipment." "Your Majesty, I have an idea," Xianru said softly. Zhao Fu asked in surprise, "What method do you have?" "Your Majesty, do you know about the Heaven Prayer Platform?" Xianru asked. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. At that moment, Xianru explained, "The Heaven Prayer Platform isn't only used to increase stats. Its true purpose is to connect with the heavens and earth and communicate with the heavens and earth." Hearing Xianru's words, Zhao Fu suddenly understood and asked, "How do we do this?" Xianru explained everything to Zhao Fu. After hearing Xianru's explanation, Zhao Fu immediately got up and ordered people to make preparations. "Your Majesty, this can only be done when the sun rises tomorrow, so there's no need to rush. You still haven't tried the dishes I've made yet," Xianru said softly as she smiled. Zhao Fu understood that he had been too anxious, so he apologetically smiled and sat back down at the table. He downed the cup of wine on the table, and Xianru once again poured another cup for Zhao Fu. Elsewhere, a handsome, white-faced young man with an extraordinary aura stood on the Heaven Prayer platform. He was the great Xia's legatee, CG. Beside CG was a young man who gave off a mysterious aura and was fiddling with an 8 trigrams plate. This young man's background wasn't small, and it was rumored that he was a descendant of Fuxi and was proficient in the 8 trigrams divination technique. Elsewhere, there was a young man with a well-built body and a chiseled face. He gave off a cold and domineering aura as he stood naked on top of a building. At that moment, a few incredibly beautiful women wearing only a thin veil pulled Di Wutian into a room and said, "Your Majesty, don't worry, we sisters will handle everything. Don't worry, there's us sisters here. Just enjoy yourself." These women seemed to have extraordinary backgrounds, and it was rumored that they were from the green-tailed fox bloodline. Within another room, a handsome young man lightly smiled as he chatted with a white-haired, celestial-looking elder. He was Ji Shanming, and the elder next to him was a legendary figure, Jiang Zia. Elsewhere, a delicate-looking young man and a scholarly young man were also chatting. He was the great Han's legatee, Lu Yi, and the other was a member of the Confucian faction, Liu Mo. Most of the Confucian faction had joined the Great Han dynasty, and because Lu Yi continued to reject the 100 schools of thought, the Confucian faction would be greatly valued here. Chapter 91. Dawn. The air was fresh, and the sky in the distance gradually turned white. There was still a crescent moon in the blue sky. The residents of Qin Village came to the Heaven Prayer platform. There were a few flags on the Heaven Prayer platform, and there was a red carpet on the steps. There were rows of valiant soldiers standing around the platform. "His Majesty has arrived." A loud and clear cry sounded out, and both the residents and the soldiers knelt down. Zhao Fu wore a black golden dragon crown and a black golden dragon robe, giving off the majesty of an emperor. Behind him, Bai Qi, Li Si, and many other generals appeared. After arriving at the Heaven Prayer platform, Zhao Fu slowly walked up the steps, and Bai Qi, Li Si, and the other generals also knelt down. Step by step, Zhao Fu's mind was clear and bright as he walked up to the Heaven Prayer platform. By now, there was already an incense burner, candles, and offerings on the platform. Zhao Fu stepped onto the top of the Heaven Prayer platform, and the golden sun slowly rose in the east. A golden ray of sunlight seemed to break through all darkness. It passed through the mountains and rivers and shone on Zhao Fu's body. Zhao Fu was covered by the golden light, and he seemed to glow. At this moment, Zhao Fu not only gave off the majesty of an emperor, but also a sense of divinity. Zhao Fu walked to the side of the incense burner and lit 3 incense sticks. He held the 3 incense sticks and said, "Today, in the name of the legatee of the Qin Empire, I hold the first heaven prayer ceremony. We subjects believe in the heavens, and we hope that the heavens will understand our sincerity." After saying this, Zhao Fu placed the 3 incense sticks on the incense burner and closed his eyes. He raised his head and calmed himself down, using his heart to comprehend the heavens and the earth. Boom! Zhao Fu felt a huge explosion in his mind as a vast, ancient aura descended. Zhao Fu opened his eyes and saw countless specks of light falling down from the sky like snowflakes, creating a beautiful scene. These specks of light landed on the flowers and condensed into crystal-clear flower tears. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. Xianru's words had succeeded. After concluding the ceremony, Zhao Fu ordered people to collect the flower tears. There were a total of 1 million flower tears, which was equivalent to 10 million flower tear points. Zhao Fu was naturally quite happy. However, the heaven sacrifice ceremony could only be done once within a short period of time. However, Zhao Fu was already quite satisfied because he had obtained 10 million flower tear points. There were still so many flower tears, and Zhao Fu had already collected 10 pink flower tears. Apart from this, he also found an even rarer azure flower tear point, which could be fused into a level 2 flower fairy's blessing. Level 2 Flower Fairy's Blessing. Effectiveness, 3 years. Description: the Flower Fairy's most beautiful blessing. Increases the speed at which flowers in your territory grow by 200% and the speed at which flowers wilt by 200%. Has a chance of attracting flower spirits. The Level 2 Flower Fairy's Blessing increased the speed at which flowers grow and wilt by 100% and had a small chance of attracting flower spirits. Zhao Fu only collected 3 azure flower tears, and he wasn't in a hurry. He first fused the 10 pink flower tears together, forming a pink pearl that was as big as a pearl. Zhao Fu went to the center of the village and chose to use it. The pink pearl slowly floated up from Zhao Fu's hand and flew into the sky, turning into the image of a beautiful young woman. This young woman looked 15 or 16 years old and wore clothes made from flower petals. This was most likely the Flower Fairy. After the Flower Fairy's image appeared, she lightly laughed and spread out her hands, causing countless flower petals to fall from her hands. A pink wave of light spread out, following which the Flower Fairy's image gradually disappeared. Zhao Fu received a system announcement that the Qin village had obtained the Flower Fairy's blessing. After dealing with this matter, Zhao Fu brought a large amount of food to the Orc City. He showed Gunador's command medallion and met with him. "Respected Vice Lord, I brought a large amount of food for you. I brought you a lot of food. How many flower tears have you collected?" Zhao Fu's voice sounded out from under his black cloak. Gunador confidently smiled and took out 10 ordinary spatial rings. Zhao Fu took them and found that each ring contained 10,000 flower tears, which meant that there were 1 million flower tears in total. This was the result of 200,000 or so orcs working together. Seeing so many flower tears, Zhao Fu felt quite happy. Following this, he exchanged for the 110,000 flower tears, according to the price that they had agreed on. Let's continue the trade. I hope that the esteemed Vice Lord can continue to collect flower tears, Zhao Fu said as he cupped his hands and said to Gunador as he put all of the flower tears into his king's ring. Gunador had obtained so much food without losing a single soldier, and he had only used flower tears, which were useless to him. A smile appeared on Gunador's old face as he nodded and agreed. Both sides had obtained what they wanted, and the trade was concluded perfectly. Not too long after Zhao Fu left, a well-built orc who gave off an oppressive aura walked in and said unhappily, "Gunador, why did you trust this human so much? Why do you trust this human so much and even make a deal with him?" Gunador looked at the orc and continued to smile as he replied, "I didn't trust him. We were just using each other. Since he has so much food, why didn't you just steal it?" The powerful orc said in a booming voice. Hearing this, Gunador smiled and shook his head as he said, "Bottle Eye, can't you use your brain? You should learn from humans in this aspect. Brute force isn't necessarily the best method. Do you want that bit of food, or do you want countless amounts of food?" Bottle Eye was the well-built orc, and he replied, "Of course I want countless amounts of food. Then isn't everything clear?" Gunador asked. However, after hearing Gunador's words, Bottle Eye looked quite confused as he asked, "Gunador, what are you talking about?" Hearing this, Gunador, the most intelligent orc in Khaki City, felt quite helpless. "Tell me, what is it?" Bottle Eye's interest was piqued once again, and he asked Gunador. Gunador shook his head, feeling a headache coming on. He felt that Bottle Eye was quite a weirdo in Khaki City. Orcs worshipped brute force, but that didn't mean that they were stupid. Bottle Eye was just an idiot, and if you answered his question, you would be dragged into a maelstrom. You would be pestered by him for a few days, asking this and that. However, he was an absolute expert, and apart from City Lord Khaki, not a single orc out of the 200,000 or so orcs could defeat him. In order to get Bottle Eye to leave as soon as possible, Gunador casually said, "City Lord Khaki seems to be looking for you. You should go and take a look." Hearing this, Bottle Eye nodded and left, thinking that Khaki was looking for him. It could be seen how gullible this fellow was. Chapter 92. How could someone exchange for a piece of legendary grade equipment so quickly? Even though the last piece of legendary-grade equipment had disappeared, this news shocked countless factions, and they understood just how intense the competition was. Every faction was on the brink of death, and they were doing everything they could to collect flower tears. The sudden disappearance of a piece of legendary-grade equipment dealt a blow to Zhao Fu's confidence in obtaining one of the top 10 pieces of legendary-grade equipment. Zhao Fu didn't want to waste any time, so he teleported back to Qin Village and ordered his people to quickly collect flower tears. Time always passed quickly when one was busy, and soon it was night again. Zhao Fu stood on the empty ground in front of the village and watched as Li Si went through his gains. Following this, Li Si reported, "Your Majesty." Li Si then reported, "Your Majesty, we've collected 150,000 flower tears in total." Hearing this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but sigh. Right now, he only had 27 million flower tears, which wasn't enough. Zhao Fu teleported back to Light City and converted the flower tears he had just obtained into flower tear points. He then went to the exchange stone steel and saw that 2 of the 37 pieces of legendary-grade equipment had disappeared. Including the one from before, 3 pieces of legendary-grade equipment had disappeared. After looking at the 3 pieces of legendary-grade equipment that had disappeared, Zhao Fu was just about to leave when he heard someone call out to him from behind. He turned and saw that it was Jiang Ro. "What is it?" Zhao Fu asked softly as he looked at Jiang Ro. Jiang Ro looked to the side and suddenly pulled Zhao Fu to an empty corner, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite confused. "This is for you." At this moment, Jiang Ro handed over an ordinary spatial ring. Zhao Fu received it and found that there were roughly 6,000 flower tears inside. Seeing this, Zhao Fu immediately returned it to Jiang Ro. Jiang Ro said with a strange expression, "Zhao Xin, don't tell me you don't lack flower tears? Don't worry, this belongs to me. It doesn't belong to the Jiang family." Hearing this, Zhao Fu couldn't accept it even more. Even though he desperately needed flower tears, every large family desperately needed flower tears. If Jiang Ro's actions were discovered by the Jiang family, she would definitely be criticized, and her days would be even more difficult. Zhao Fu was quite touched by her actions. Since Jiang Ro treated him as a friend and was willing to take such a risk to help him, how could Zhao Fu let her fall into such a situation? Zhao Fu chuckled and shook his head. He did not give any reason and only said, "Thank you." Seeing this, Jiang Ro had no choice but to put the storage ring away. The two of them chatted about their respective situations and gradually relaxed. Zhao Fu was no longer as anxious as before, and Jiang Ro was no longer as stressed and tense as before. Then, the two of them smiled and ended the conversation. The next day, Zhao Fu brought a large amount of food to Gunador's tent. Apart from Gunador, he found that there was also an abnormally powerful orc. This orc gave Zhao Fu a powerful sense of oppression that was more than 10 times that of a stage 1 soldier in a main city. This orc caused Zhao Fu's pupils to contract because he could sense that this orc's cultivation was definitely above stage 3. However, Zhao Fu's expression did not change because his greatest trump card was his nation armament. "Respected Vice Lord, I brought a large amount of food. I brought a large amount of rations this time. How are your flower tears?" Zhao Fu walked into the tent and cupped his hands as he smiled and said to Gunador. Gunador also smiled and said, "Esteemed guest, I've long since prepared them." After saying this, Gunador took out 12 storage rings. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted and took a look. Sure enough, there were 120,000 flower tears, and he also took out a large amount of food to exchange. After completing this transaction, Zhao Fu felt quite strange. The powerful orc next to Gunador had not said anything the entire time, and he only sat there with his mouth closed and his eyes staring at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt that there was something wrong with this fellow's mind. Following this, Zhao Fu decided to leave. He was not afraid of ordinary dogs, but he was afraid of mad dogs that suddenly attacked. After seeing Zhao Fu leave, Bottle Eye finally couldn't hold back anymore and said seriously, "I feel that this human isn't simple." Hearing this, Gunador felt quite surprised and asked, "How do you know?" Bottle-Eye directly replied, "Because he's not afraid of me glaring at him." Gunador was speechless and ignored Bottle-Eye, and he continued to collect the food that he had just obtained. After returning to Qin village, Zhao Fu rode on Little Black and Little Gray, and he decided to personally look around to see if there were any unexpected gains. This time, he mainly relied on Little Gray's nose to see if it could sniff out a large number of flowers. However, there definitely weren't any nearby, as the ordinary gray wolves had already searched the area. As such, Zhao Fu wanted to go further away. Zhao Fu rode on Little Black and followed behind Little Gray, and he was quite surprised to find some unexpected gains. He found a hidden valley filled with all sorts of flowers, and Zhao Fu also found a type of violet flower tear that was even rarer than the azure flower tear. This violet flower tear was as big as a marble, and it floated above a bright red rose, giving off a mysterious and noble violet light. After using 10 violet flower tears, one would receive the Level 3 Flower Fairy's Blessing. Level 3 Flower Fairy's Blessing. Effectiveness: 3 years. Description: the Flower Fairy's most beautiful blessing. Increases the speed at which flowers in your territory grow by 400% and the speed at which flowers wilt by 400%. There's a high chance of attracting flower spirits. The Level 3 Flower Fairy's Blessing gave even more stat bonuses, reaching 400%, and there was a high chance of attracting flower spirits. It was a pity that violet flower tears were incredibly rare, as only Zhao Fu had found one. Even with so many orcs in the Orc City, none of them had found one. At the same time, a violet flower tear was equivalent to 10,000 normal flower tears. By now, Zhao Fu had collected 7 azure flower tears, and soon he would be able to obtain the Level 2 Flower Fairy's Blessing. After discovering this hidden place, Zhao Fu brought people over to collect them. It was another dark night. There was no moon on this night, only a few faintly discernible stars twinkling in the night sky. The night was a little dark. Zhao Fu had obtained 830,000 flower tears in total, but another 8 pieces of legendary grade equipment had disappeared. Of these 8 pieces of legendary grade equipment, Holy Heaven was one of them. This news caused countless factions to feel incredibly tense, and even Zhao Fu felt incredibly nervous. Early the next morning, Zhao Fu headed to the Orc City to exchange for flower tears. This time, the Orc City had collected 3 million flower tears, allowing Zhao Fu to relax. Now, Zhao Fu had 6 million flower tears in total, which was 56 million flower tear points. This was just enough to exchange for the top-ranked legendary grade equipment, Sky Demon. After teleporting to Holy Light City, Zhao Fu felt incredibly excited and nervous. He immediately put Sky Demon into his king's ring without even looking at it. Suddenly, the exchange stone steel once again shined with a half-violet light, causing all factions to almost collapse. Sky Demon, the top-ranked equipment, had disappeared. Chapter 93. How is this possible? The countless faction leaders stared at the Sky Demon in shock. Now that the top-ranked equipment has disappeared, what about the second and third places? Will we even have a share of the top 10 legendary grade equipment? Hurry! No matter what it takes, whether you buy it or steal it, go get flower tears. The countless faction leaders roared with bloodshot eyes. The disappearance of the top-ranked Sky Demon was a massive blow to them, and it was not something that the 7th-ranked Sacred Heaven could deal with. Sacred Heaven's disappearance had pushed all of the factions to their limits, and it was a sign that the top 10 pieces of equipment were no longer safe. They were on the verge of collapse, and it was possible that they would be taken soon. However, now that even the top-ranked Sky Demon had disappeared, it was possible that all of the remaining legendary grade equipment would disappear in the next second and be taken by someone else. How could their hearts not beat wildly? Many of the player forces guessed that a super-powerful official force had taken action. The city lords of the system forces were also somewhat surprised. They, too, had placed great importance on the first 3.5 pieces of epic equipment. They had never thought that the top-ranked Sky Demon would disappear. following which they took action. CG, Di Wu Tian, Ji Shanming, and Lu Yi had been determined to obtain the Sky Demon. After all, swords were the symbol of kings, and China had 5,000 years of history with swords. The top-ranked Sky Demon was a sword, and it was a half-epic great equipment. They had thought that with this sword, the Sky Demon would follow them to slash through thorns and vines, pave the way for kings, and witness their achievements. But now that the Sky Demon had been exchanged, it was a huge blow to them. The four people's originally confident faces turned pale, but what followed was an even greater blow. Because of Zhao Fu, the system faction leaders also acted. The top 6, Dragon Soul, Demigod, Vast Sun, 8 Mountains, and Giant Spirit all disappeared. This not only caused CG and the others' faces to become even paler, but it also caused all of the player faction leaders' faces to become pale. Adding on Sacred Heaven, who had disappeared first, there were now only 8 pieces of equipment. Thunder Fong, 9 pieces of equipment, Frigid Soul, and 10 pieces of equipment, Spirit Tree. The remaining 3 pieces of legendary grade equipment would face an even more intense competition. Of course, Zhao Fu didn't know this. After exchanging for the Heavenly Devil, he was also very excited and happy. He directly teleported back to Qin Village. When the generals learned that Zhao Fu had already exchanged for the first-ranked Heavenly Demon, they were all delighted. At this time, Zhao Fu also took out Sky Demon. This was a pure black sword that was 1 meter long. The blade gave off a demonic light that seemed to devour people. The hilt and blade were connected to each other in the shape of a demon, and the hilt was covered in black scales. It felt cold to the touch, and the entire sword gave off the feeling of a demonic sword that gave off an evil, cold, and murderous aura. Suddenly, the Heavenly Demon let out a series of sword cries, and the sword trembled violently. It broke free from Zhao Fu's hand and stabbed into the ground. Following this, a large amount of demonic qi came out from the sword and flowed into the ground. The ground seemed to be dyed with ink, becoming pitch black. This blackness gradually spread out, covering everything within a 10-meter radius. A figure slowly appeared, standing on the hilt of the Heavenly Demon sword. It slowly spread out its large pair of black wings, revealing its appearance. She looked like a female demon and had a tall and slim figure. She had jet black waist-length hair and a pair of argali horns on her head. Her face was incredibly beautiful, and it was a suffocating beauty. She also had a mouth full of fangs and a pair of blood-red vertical pupils. She coldly looked at Zhao Fu and said in a slightly arrogant tone, "Human, you're not worthy to be called a human. You want to control me?" Looking at this demon, Zhao Fu remembered the introduction of the Heavenly Demon. It was created from a Heavenly Demon's corpse, and the Heavenly Demon was most likely the demon in front of him. More accurately speaking, it was a sword spirit. She was a Heavenly Demon, but she had been killed by something. Not only had her corpse been made into a weapon, but even her soul had been sealed into a sword spirit. Zhao Fu did not like her arrogant tone and her condescending attitude, so he expressionlessly coldly harumphed and stepped out, causing a black dragon inscription barrier to spread out. Zhao Fu's king's domain was 30 meters wide, and it suppressed the Heavenly Demon's Sky Demon domain. The Heavenly Demon was given a big fright and started to resist. However, Zhao Fu once again coldly harumphed and unleashed his king's domain. The black dragon inscription barrier expanded to 50 meters, and the Sky Demon domain collapsed, turning into traces of demonic qi and dissipating. The Heavenly Demon's face was quite pale, and its blood-red vertical pupils stared at Zhao Fu, wanting to say something. Zhao Fu grabbed at the air towards the Heavenly Demon sword, and the Heavenly Demon's body turned into a ray of black light and entered the sword. A formless energy grabbed onto the Heavenly Demon sword, causing it to automatically fly into Zhao Fu's hand. Suddenly, a voice sounded out in Zhao Fu's mind. "Humph, human, I never thought that you would obtain king's power. Human, I never thought that you would obtain king's power, but if I was at my peak, I wouldn't be afraid of you." Zhao Fu sent his king's power into the heavenly demon's sword, and the heavenly demon within became obedient. Only then did Zhao Fu look at the heavenly demon sword stats. Sky Demon Sword. Grade. Half-epic stats. Strength plus 20. Intelligence plus 15. Constitution plus 10. Agility plus 10. Description. An extremely powerful demonic sword forged from a heavenly demon corpse. This sword's stats were incredibly close to epic grade equipment, and it just lacked an opportunity. Zhao Fu suddenly thought of the General Soul. This General Soul was equivalent to 10 soldier souls, and he only needed 10 to fuse a general armament. However, the purity of a General Soul's power was far greater than that of 10 soldier souls. Zhao Fu wanted to use this General Soul to upgrade the Sky Demon Sword to epic grade. When he thought of that, Zhao Fu decided to fuse the General Soul with the Sky Demon Sword. The General Soul slowly fused into the Sky Demon Sword, causing it to hover in the air and give off a brilliant violet and orange light. Being covered by these two lights, the Sky Demon Sword seemed to go through some sort of transformation. Suddenly, the wind and clouds in the sky started to swirl as golden clouds appeared in the sky. The violet light that the Sky Demon Sword gave off became less and less before it completely disappeared, replaced by an orange light that seemed to have aged. The golden clouds in the sky stretched for hundreds of kilometers, and countless rays of light descended from the sky, accompanied by celestial music, creating a beautiful and majestic scene. The Sky Demon Sword completed its transformation and slowly descended. In actuality, creating a legendary grade equipment would cause abnormal signs, and this was caused by the Sky Demon Sword rising to epic grade. Zhao Fu caught the Sky Demon Sword as it descended from the sky. The aura that the Sky Demon Sword gave off now contained a trace of killing intent, making it much easier for Zhao Fu to wield it. Chapter 94. Hearing the Sky Demon's words change so quickly, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised, but he still refused, saying, "That's all." Stingy human. The Sky Demon's attitude changed faster than flipping a page, and Zhao Fu felt quite speechless. After saying this, the Sky Demon's voice disappeared, and Zhao Fu once again looked at the Sky Demon Sword stats. Sky Demon Sword. Grade. Epic stats. Strength plus 30. Intelligence plus 25. Constitution plus 20. Agility plus 20. Description. An extremely powerful demonic sword forged from a Sky Demon corpse. These were the basic stats. All 4 stats have been increased by 10 points, and there were some special abilities that were not displayed by the system. For example, equipment with equipment spirits had to rely on their equipment spirits to unleash their special abilities. There were also some equipment that allowed one to directly use high-grade power, such as this. Zhao Fu gripped the hilt of the sword, and a large amount of demonic qi flowed out of the sword. Zhao Fu casually swung it. Shing! A black sword light flashed out, and a 5-meter-long sword gash appeared on the ground. There were also traces of demonic qi. This was Sky Demon's power, a power that was countless times more powerful than ordinary demon's power. After looking at the Sky Demon Sword stats, Zhao Fu put it away in his king's ring. Now that he had obtained the number 1 Sky Demon Sword, Zhao Fu was quite satisfied. The Sky Demon Sword satisfied Zhao Fu's desire to obtain a new weapon. Moreover, after trading with the orcs, Zhao Fu had collected 10 azure flower tears. He fused them together into an azure orb, and after using it, he obtained the level 2 Flower Fairy's blessing. He had also collected 3 violet flower tears. With how rare violet flower tears were, Zhao Fu did not know if he would be able to collect 10 by the end of the 10,000 Flower Festival. Once the 10,000 Flower Festival ended, all of the flower tears would disappear. Now that he had obtained the weapon that he wanted, it was time to look at other items. It was now the 4th day of the 10,000 Flower Festival, and there were still 3 more days before it ended. Zhao Fu teleported back to Holy Light City and looked at the exchange stone steel. He was shocked to find that the top 10 pieces of equipment on the legendary rankings had all disappeared. What was going on? Zhao Fu, of course, did not know that after he exchanged for the heavenly demon, it immediately caused a bloodbath. Zhao Fu looked at the other items and found that there were almost no city creation stones left. As such, Zhao Fu looked at the skills, materials, medicinal pills, and special items. He found a few useful items, but it was a pity that Zhao Fu had already used up all of his flower tears, so he could only look at them. After looking at these things, just as Zhao Fu was about to leave, he saw a bright young man wearing a suit of armor leading a large group of players to the exchange stone steel. The surrounding players automatically made way for them and muttered, "I wonder what the Holy Light Group's harvest was like this time. I heard that Lu Nanmi took them into the inner regions of the Forest of Horrors." Holy Light Group? Zhao Fu glanced at the largest player faction in Holy Light City and felt that the young man leading the group was quite interesting. His body gave off some sort of holy light energy ripples, but everyone had their own opportunities. Zhao Fu did not pay too much attention to them, so he just stood there and watched. Zhao Fu was wearing a cloak, and unless one was very familiar with him, it would be very difficult to recognize him. After all, Zhao Fu was not the only one wearing a cloak. After entering the Heaven Awakened world, one's appearance and voice would not change. If one offended someone in the Heaven Awakened world, others could use their appearance to find them in the real world. As such, many people would wear cloaks to avoid such trouble. Lu Nanmi walked over to the exchange stone steel to exchange for flower tier points, while the other members of the Holy Light Group stood behind him. At this moment, a player curiously asked the Holy Light Group members, "Brother." At this moment, a player curiously asked the person from the Holy Light Group, "Brother, I heard that the Holy Light Group dared to enter the inner regions of the Forest of Horrors." The person who had been asked the question smiled and replied, "Of course. Look at how powerful the Holy Light Group is. We're the largest player faction in Holy Light City. If you want to know how many flower tears we obtained, I'll tell you." After speaking, the person from the Holy Light Group smiled and lightly stretched out a finger. Seeing this, the person who had asked the question cried out in shock, 10,000 flower tears. Hearing this, the person from the Holy Light Group lightly laughed and said, "It's 100,000 flower tears." What? The surrounding people were sent into an uproar, and they all looked incredibly shocked as they said, "Your Holy Light Group obtained so many flower tears? I was so scared. If I had 100 flower tears, I'd be so happy." Hearing the surrounding people's words, the Holy Light Group's people couldn't help but look incredibly proud. The surrounding people also felt quite envious, and someone immediately asked, "Great Leader Lu, does the Holy Light Group still want people?" By now, Lu Nanmi had finished his exchange, and hearing the surrounding people's words, he slightly smiled and said, "The Holy Light Group accepts people at any time. Anyone who can pass our examination can join the Holy Light Group." "I'll join then. I want to join too. Holy Light Group, please accept me." Countless people responded, and the scene became incredibly lively. Zhao Fu stood by the side and smiled. To Zhao Fu, who had already spent more than 5 million flower tears, 100,000 flower tears wasn't much. However, to ordinary people, it was an astronomical sum. Hearing that Zhao Fu had spent 100,000 flower tears was enough to make him feel incredibly shocked. If he heard that Zhao Fu had spent more than 5 million flower tears, he wondered if he would be scared to death. Zhao Fu didn't have any plans to establish a player faction for now. After all, players were quite difficult to manage, and they didn't have to follow his rules and regulations. Their loyalty was quite low, and they wouldn't be completely loyal to him or risk their lives for him. If they encountered danger, they would be the first to run away. Moreover, if they died, they would appear somewhere else. For example, if he nurtured them into an elite, everything would be for naught if they died. Large families rarely accepted ordinary player factions, as they had long since nurtured a large number of people who were loyal to them. Rather than wasting resources on a bunch of useless trash, it was better to nurture their own people. Although aristocratic families had fewer members, in terms of combat power, player factions were no match for aristocratic families' factions. Hence, player factions with some foresight wouldn't accept just anyone. Firstly, it would consume too much resources. Secondly, accepting people who weren't united and didn't have the strength to back them up would just be raising a bunch of roundworms. As such, they could only establish a strict examination system and choose useful and valuable people to join, slowly nurturing a sense of honor and belonging. Only then would they be loyal and willing to risk their lives for them. Chapter 95. After looking at these things, Zhao Fu teleported back to the Qin village to take care of other matters. On the 5th day of the 10,000 Flower Festival, he once again traded with the orcs and obtained 1,000,000 flower tears. Adding on the 100,000 flower tears that he had obtained, he went to the exchange stone steel and exchanged all of his flower tier points for an item that Zhao Fu valued. 100 Origin Pill. Recipe Evaluation. Blue, Grade 2. Required ingredients. 100 Origin Grass. Withered 5 roots. Xiongji. Effect Summary. Can increase the speed of cultivation by 4 times. The 100 Origin Pills recipe cost 12 million flower tier points, and this cost Zhao Fu almost all of his flower tier points. The 100 Origin Pills effects were even better than the Little Spirit Pill, and it could increase one's cultivation speed by 4 times. Similarly, the main ingredient of the 100 Origin Pill was the 100 Origin Grass, which belonged to the 2nd rank. It should be even harder to find than the Little Spirit Grass, so it also depended on luck. Zhao Fu collected another 2 violet flower tears, bringing his total to 5. There were still 2 days until the end of the 10,000 Flower Festival, and Zhao Fu was worried that he wouldn't be able to collect all of them. Time gradually passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was already the 6th day of the 10,000 Flower Festival. By now, all of the items on the legendary list had disappeared, and countless powers were fighting over the 37 pieces of legendary equipment. Those that had obtained legendary equipment were naturally overjoyed, while those that hadn't were filled with depression. Most of the 37 pieces of legendary equipment had gone to the system factions. Only a small portion of player factions had obtained a piece of legendary equipment. Of course, Zhao Fu was the biggest winner this time. It was now the 6th day of the 10,000 Flower Festival, and Zhao Fu had obtained another 2 million flower tears from trading with the orcs. This time, Zhao Fu used these flower tears to exchange for 3 items. One of the ingredients was 2 medicinal pills, and one of the ingredients was bright sky gold. Grade, gold. Description, an ordinary gold-grade material that can be used to create gold-grade equipment. Compared to exchanging for gold equipment, exchanging for materials was much more cost-effective. Road was on the verge of making a breakthrough and would soon be able to forge gold equipment, so there was no need for Zhao Fu to worry about this. Thinking of the gold-grade equipment, Zhao Fu couldn't help but think of Gong Sun Lin. He wondered how she was doing right now. The remaining 2 pills were Frowny Face Bloodline Pill. Grade, Gold, Stage 4. Description, can be used by certain creatures to increase their bloodline. Note, only usable by other creatures, and cannot be used by humans or humanoid creatures. These 2 medicinal pills were naturally for the Gray Wolf King Little Gray and the Black Forest Horse King Little Gray. A gold-grade material cost 500,000 flower tears, while 2 Blood Ascension pills cost 700,000 flower tears. This time, Zhao Fu had used up all of his flower tears. There was also the violet flower tear. Zhao Fu had only collected 1 today, so he now had a total of 6. There was only 1 day left, so he could only hope that his luck would be better on the last day. After teleporting back to Qin Village, he called Little Gray and Little Black to his side. Zhao Fu once promised them that he would make them grow into the most powerful creatures. Of course, as a king, he would certainly fulfill his promise. Zhao Fu called the 2 of them to his side and fed them a bloodline pill. Little Black and Little Gray definitely had other bloodlines in them, as they weren't just commander-tier creatures. Just by looking at their appearances, Zhao Fu could tell that there was something special about them. After eating the bloodline pill, Little Black and Little Gray's bodies started to go through changes. Nay, Little Black became quite agitated, and it stomped its hooves on the ground as green flames appeared around its body. more and more green flames appeared, and they burned ferociously until they completely surrounded Little Black. Little Black howled in pain within the green flames. Oh, Little Gray swallowed a bloodline pill and started to howl as a large amount of silver light appeared around its body. In the end, Little Gray couldn't take it anymore and howled towards the sky in pain as the gray color on its body gradually disappeared. As the two of them howled in pain, their voices seemed to be able to pierce through rocks and pierce through gold. The ordinary black forest horses and gray wolves lost control and howled towards the sky along with their kings. Immediately, Cheen Village's wolves howled and horses neighed. This sudden change gave Li Si a big fright, and he hurriedly ran over to where Little Gray and Little Black were howling. Seeing the shocking changes happening to Little Black and Little Gray, Li Si went up and reported to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand, and Li Si respectfully retreated to the side. Zhao Fu calmly stood by the side and looked at Little Gray and Little Black's changes. Even though Zhao Fu knew that they were in great pain, this was a transformation that they had always wanted. Little Black, who was covered by the green flames, gave off a terrifying power. His body didn't change at all, but the short black horn on his head started to rapidly grow until it was almost 30 centimeters long, giving off a cold light. A while later, the green flames on Little Black's body started to slowly fade away. Little Black's transformation was complete, and his appearance had also changed. His black horn had grown by 30 centimeters, and his green eyes were like two orbs of green flames, giving off an eerie feeling. His body was also darker than before, and there were small orbs of green flames on each of his hooves. The aura that Little Black gave off was many times more powerful than before, and it was also much more dangerous. Then, Little Gray's body gave off a large amount of silver light that covered the surrounding 10 meters. The surrounding 10 meters were filled with specks of starlight, looking quite beautiful. The silver fur on Little Gray's head was now like a silver flame, and Little Gray's gray fur slowly faded away and became a silver-white color. Finally, Little Gray also completed its transformation. First of all, its body had doubled in size. It was now the size of carriage. Its fur had also turned silver, and its fur was very soft. At the same time, its eyes had become a pair of silver pupils. Its overall appearance was quite different, and the aura it gave off was even more powerful and mysterious. After the two of them completed their transformations, the ordinary gray wolves and black forest horses also returned to normal. Little Black and Little Gray rushed over to Zhao Fu's side and licked Zhao Fu, expressing their joy. Zhao Fu smiled and rubbed their heads. At the same time, he looked at their stats, and he found that their stats had greatly increased. Little Black had also awakened a bloodline called Underworld Nightmare, and it had obtained Underworld Nightmare's power. Little Gray had also awakened a bloodline called Star Moon, and it had obtained Star Moon's power. Congratulations, Your Majesty. Seeing Little Black and Little Gray's shocking changes, Li Si smiled as he spoke to Zhao Fu. Chapter 96. Zhao Fu's luck seemed to be quite good this morning. He had found a violet flower tear at the start, and he now had 8 of them. Because the 10,000 Flower Festival would officially end at midnight, Zhao Fu didn't go to the Orc territory to trade in the morning. Instead, he planned to go at 9 p.m. He now had 8 violet flower tears, but just to be safe, Zhao Fu decided to see if anyone was willing to sell them. He wanted to try his luck in case he didn't find a single violet flower tear in the future. After walking around Holy Light City, Zhao Fu didn't find anything, so he went to Soldier Forest. After walking around, he found many people gathered around a stall. Zhao Fu walked over curiously, and he was delighted to see that the stall owner was selling a violet flower tear. Of course, countless people wanted a violet flower tear, as a single violet flower tear was worth 10,000 normal flower tears. The reason why no one had sold a violet flower tear was because its price was simply too high. The stall owner wanted 3 million silver coins, which was equivalent to 300 million copper coins, or $3 billion in the real world. Currently, a normal flower tier could only sell for 20 silver coins, so a violet flower tier could sell for 200,000 silver coins. This was only based on the value of a normal flower tier, but with how rare a violet flower tier was, it would definitely be worth more than 200,000 silver coins. However, it was impossible for it to reach an astronomical price of 3 million silver coins each. After all, it was the last day of the 10,000 Flower Festival, and if one couldn't gather 10 violet flower tiers, they would only be worth 10,000 normal flower tiers. If this violet flower tier had been sold at the start of the 10,000 Flower Festival, it would have sold for at least 500,000 silver coins. However, now that the 10,000 Flower Festival was almost over, the violet flower tier would only be worth 300,000 silver coins at most. The stall owner had been incredibly lucky. He had wanted to go outside the city to find flower tiers, but before he could find them, he had been chased by people. In the end, he had accidentally fallen off a hill and dropped a violet flower tier. After asking around, he heard that the various large factions only had pink flower tiers. They hadn't even seen a cyan flower tier, let alone a violet flower tier. This was why he had dared to offer such a high price for the purple flower tier. Zhao Fu went up and asked if he would sell it for 300,000 silver coins, but the stall owner immediately refused. Zhao Fu then raised the price to 500,000 silver coins, but the stall owner still refused, insisting on 3 million silver coins. The high prices that Zhao Fu offered caused everyone in the surroundings to feel quite shocked. After all, ordinary factions definitely would not be able to take out so much money. If it wasn't for his tone, everyone would have thought that he was someone from a powerful system faction. Seeing the stall owner like this, Zhao Fu didn't insist. After all, the violet flower tier was worth that much. Zhao Fu had already taken a few steps back and didn't want to waste 3 million silver coins. After all, even if Zhao Fu made a lot of money every day, it would take him half a month or so to earn 3 million silver coins. The people around him passionately leaned over to Zhao Fu and said that they wanted to buy a large amount of money and exchange it for real-world money. Of course, Zhao Fu wasn't interested in real-world money, as it would be no different from a pile of scrap paper. However, now that he had collected 8 violet flower tiers, there were only 2 left. Zhao Fu decided to go to Orc City to take a look. If he couldn't find enough, he would just be a fool. After all, he had already collected so many, and it would be a pity to give up. Following this, Zhao Fu teleported to Orc City. Before, Gunador had been quite surprised that Zhao Fu hadn't come to trade in the morning. However, when he thought about the 10,000 Flower Festival, he thought that Zhao Fu would return at night. He hadn't expected Zhao Fu to come now. Esteemed guest, are you here to make a deal? Gunador asked as he invited Zhao Fu into his tent. Zhao Fu lightly shook his head as he replied, Esteemed Vice Lord, we can't trade right now because the 10,000 Flower Festival is about to end. We could trade at 9 p.m. I came to ask how many violet flower tiers you have. Gunador understood that they weren't interested in the Flower Fairy's blessing because no orc would like flowers. As such, no matter what kind of flower tiers they obtained, they would use them to trade with Zhao Fu. After hearing Zhao Fu's words, Gunador took out a violet flower tier from his spatial ring and handed it to Zhao Fu as he said, Esteemed guest, this item is quite rare, so I've only found one. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted and accepted the violet flower tier. He had now collected 9 violet flower tiers, and he was only missing one. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to take this violet flower tier and set a time to trade at night. Afterward, Zhao Fu teleported to Soldier Forest. Now that he only had 1 violet flower tier left, Zhao Fu could only be a fool. Even though Zhao Fu didn't want to be a fool, there was nothing he could do. He had worked so hard to collect 9, and without the 10th one, he wouldn't be able to obtain the level 3 blessing. If he couldn't obtain the 10th one, he would feel even more uncomfortable. However, after Zhao Fu returned to Soldier Forest, he only saw the stall owner's corpse. The stall owner had died a pitiful death. He had been hacked to death. After players died, their corpses would only disappear on the first day of the Heaven Awakened world, so Zhao Fu was able to see his corpse. After asking around, Zhao Fu found out that not long after he left, a group of people had risked their lives to kill the vendor. There was no such thing as a drop rate in the Heaven Awakened world, and after killing someone, all of their items would belong to you. Following this, even though most of the people were killed by the guards, a few people managed to escape with the violet flower tears. Hearing this, Zhao Fu sighed. As long as there was enough profit, there was no safety to speak of. After all, even if the violet flower tear was worth at least 200,000 silver coins, it was still equivalent to 200 million silver coins in the real world, which was why people were willing to pay any price to steal it. Of course, ordinary shops had guards that could instantly kill a large number of players. However, there was no such thing as security in stalls like this. Now that the violet flower tear had been stolen, Zhao Fu could only worry about the last violet flower tear. Time gradually passed. At 9 p.m., Zhao Fu had collected 160,000 flower tears, but he didn't have a single violet flower tear. Following this, Zhao Fu brought his last hope to the Orc City. This time, the Orc City had collected 7 million flower tears, but there was still not a single violet flower tear. This caused Zhao Fu's heart to sink. There were only 3 hours left until the end of the 10,000 Flower Festival. Chapter 97. Why do you have a violet flower tear? Zhao Fu asked as he happily took the violet flower tear from He Xianru's hand. He Xianru lightly smiled as she replied, I just walked around the city. Hearing this, even though He Xianru had made it sound so simple, Zhao Fu understood how difficult it had been. He put the violet flower tear into his king's ring and sincerely thanked He Xianru. He Xianru looked quite surprised as she said, Your Majesty, there's no need to thank me. There's no need to thank me. Everything I do is what I should do. It's my duty as a subject. Zhao Fu lightly shook his head as he said, That's not the way of the emperor that I believe in. I understand that there's a limit to my abilities, and a massive empire can't lack people like you. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, He Xianru respectfully saluted and didn't say anything else. Zhao Fu quickly teleported back to the Qin village and fused the 10 violet flower tears together before deciding to use them. Just like before, the violet flower tear slowly floated up from Zhao Fu's hand and flew into the sky, turning into the image of a beautiful young woman. However, what was different this time was that the young woman's body was no longer illusory and was instead corporeal. Her eyes were also quite lively and not as rigid as before. Just like before, the young woman lightly laughed and spread out her hands, causing countless flower petals to fall from the sky, creating a beautiful scene. Following this, a violet light spread out. Following this, the young woman's body didn't disappear and instead floated down from the sky. She came to Zhao Fu's side and lightly hugged Zhao Fu. This caused Zhao Fu to feel quite surprised. However, through his senses, he could sense that this young woman had a life of her own. He could sense the young woman's aura, and he could smell the faint flower-like fragrance coming from her body. At that moment, before Zhao Fu could do anything, the young woman's body turned into motes of light and disappeared. In Zhao Fu's mind, not only did he receive the level 3 Flower Fairy's blessing, but he also received the Flower's Embrace. Flower's Embrace. Effect. Permanent. Description. The Flower Fairy's Embrace represents the most beautiful blessing for you. Obtaining this blessing will increase your charm towards females, making it easier for you to be liked by fairies. Zhao Fu had never thought that using the violet flower tear would allow him to obtain such a blessing. However, the effects of the blessing were quite good. Does it increase your charm towards women and make it easier for spirits to like you? This blessing did not seem to be of any use to him. If it was some stallion contestant who received this blessing, he would be like a tiger that had grown wings. But it seemed to be a waste for Zhao Fu to receive this blessing. After obtaining the level 3 Flower Fairy's blessing, Zhao Fu teleported back to Holy Light City. He still had around 8 million flower tears that he had not used yet. At this time, it was already 11 p.m., and there was still an hour before the Wanhua festival ended. However, The streets were still very lively and brightly lit. Zhao Fu went to the exchange stone steel and looked at the remaining items. He first exchanged for 3 gold-grade materials, which cost him 5 million flower tears. Following this, he found a detailed map of the heaven-awakened world. This map was very big, and it had the terrain of almost every region. This would definitely be very useful, but it was quite expensive. This map cost 5 million flower tier points, which was equivalent to 250,000 flower tiers. All right, Zhao Fu understood the value of this map, so he could only buy it. Zhao Fu continued to look through the items, and in the end, his gaze fell on an item of clothing. This clothing was violet, and it looked quite simple. It was also quite beautiful, but it gave off a mysterious feeling. Dream-weaving palace robe. Grade: silver. Stats: intelligence +3, agility +2, stamina +1. Description: made from illusion spider silk. It has a certain illusion effect and gives the wearer a certain recovery effect. No wonder this robe gave off such a wonderful feeling. It was made from illusion spider silk, which was quite rare. Zhao Fu looked at the 50,000 flower tears he had left to exchange for this robe, and after thinking about it, he decided that there was nothing else he could buy. As such, Zhao Fu decided to exchange for it and give it to Xianru. After all, she had helped him a lot this time. After returning to the Westfall restaurant, Zhao Fu called Xianru over and handed her the dream-weaving palace robe. Xianru was very surprised. She had never thought that Zhao Fu would buy her a robe. However, Xianru quickly took it and thanked Zhao Fu. Following this, Zhao Fu left the heaven-awakened world and returned to the real world to take a look. Because Zhao Fu did not have any scouts, he could only use the information on the Heaven-Awakened World Forum to assess the various factions' strength so that he would not be a frog at the bottom of a well. After returning to the real world, Zhao Fu immediately opened up the Heaven-Awakened World Forum and looked through it. He found that the most popular post was about the winners of the 37 pieces of legendary grade equipment. This piqued Zhao Fu's interest, so he curiously clicked on it to take a look. First, Sky Demon, obtained by an unknown faction, guesses, most likely one of the system's most powerful factions. Even though we don't know much about this faction, it will definitely be a huge obstacle for players in the future. Please keep this in mind. Second, Dragon Soul, obtained by an unknown faction, guesses, most likely one of the system's most powerful factions because the Dragon Soul also disappeared a few minutes after the Sky Demon disappeared. Third, Demigod, obtained by an unknown faction, guesses, most likely one of the system's most powerful factions, but it's weaker than the other 2 factions. However, it's still an existence that players can only look up to. The first 5 items had all been obtained by unknown factions. The 6th-ranked giant spirit had been obtained by one of the system's factions, Full Moon City. Zhao Fu looked at the Sky Demon's description and couldn't help but laugh. Well, most powerful faction. It'll definitely be a huge obstacle for players in the future. Zhao Fu was very clear about his own strength. This time, he had mostly relied on luck. If he had arrived a few minutes later, the Sky Demon would have definitely been the 2nd-ranked faction. Apart from Zhao Fu, none of the first 6 items had been obtained by player factions. However, the 7th item, Holy Heaven, had actually been obtained by a player. She was the legendary descendant of King Arthur in the West, Tina Arthur. Once this news spread, countless factions were alarmed. This was especially so for the number 1 faction in the world, China. Apart from China, another powerful competitor had appeared. Chapter 98. The 11th piece of legendary equipment was obtained by the Roman Empire's legatee, Caesar Augustus. The 12th piece of legendary equipment was obtained by the Great Han Empire, and the 13th piece of legendary equipment was obtained by Pharaoh Akhenaten. By the time the 13th piece of legendary equipment was obtained, the next 7 pieces of legendary equipment had all been obtained by system factions. The 21st piece of legendary equipment had been obtained by Great Tang. This made Zhao Fu feel quite concerned. The 22nd piece of legendary equipment was obtained by Oda Nobunaga's descendant, the 23rd by the Russian Empire, and the 24th by India. Following this, all of the legendary equipment had been obtained by system factions, and not a single player faction had obtained anything. This showed how lucky Zhao Fu had been to obtain the first Sky Demon, as well as how intense the competition was. Moreover, legendary equipment was not easy to obtain. Not only did every piece of legendary equipment contain massive power, but it was also a symbol of power. In the future, even if one had 100,000 pieces of gold-grade equipment, they might not even have a single piece of legendary equipment. It could be seen just how rare legendary equipment was, and it was on a completely different level from gold-grade equipment. After looking through the various factions, apart from the Chinese factions, the one that Zhao Fu paid the most attention to was King Arthur's descendant. She had been able to obtain saintly heaven so quickly, and Zhao Fu had a premonition that she would become one of his most powerful enemies in the future. Sitting on a chair, Zhao Fu sank into his thoughts before letting out a breath and looking at the Heaven Awakened World Forum to see if there were any other things that had happened recently. Soon, he found something that made Zhao Fu feel quite serious, which was the revival of the ancient clans. The ancient clans referred to clans that had disappeared. Even though they were some people's ancestors, they had already perished and no longer existed. In China, there were the Zhuli clan, led by Qi Yu, who had fought against the Yellow Emperor. There were also the 4 clans from the Spring and Autumn Warring States period, such as the Eastern Yi clan, the Southern Barbarian clan, the Western Rong clan, the Northern Di clan, and the Han Dynasty Xiongnu, the Great Moon clan, and the Xianbei clan. These races did not enter the Heaven Awakened world as players, but they had revived in the Heaven Awakened world and had appeared as resident villages. These tribes that appeared were different from ordinary native villages. Not only did they have the relevant bloodlines, but they also had their own history, culture, and customs. Their appearance was not very friendly to the people of Huaxia. In many places, there were rumors of people being attacked by the Xiongnu, Turks, Liao, and Jin. Looking at this information, Zhao Fu felt a headache coming on, and he felt that the world was simply too chaotic. This was the current Heaven Awakened world, where blood would flow like rivers, corpses would pile up into mountains, and countless heroes would meet their end. These foreign races had the same starting point as the players. Right now, they definitely didn't have any towns or cities, but that might not be the case in the future. Moreover, the difference was that the players could resurrect after death, but these foreign races would die. If an entire race died, it would be the same as exterminating the entire race. It was most likely that the Heaven Awakened world was giving these dying races one last chance. If they grasped this chance, they would be able to continue living, and if they could not, they would be completely wiped out. After looking at this, Zhao Fu entered the Heaven Awakened world with a headache. Now that the 10,000 Flower Festival had ended, everything had returned to normal. Zhao Fu once again ordered the 4 teams to continue exploring in different directions. At the same time, he paid attention to whether or not there were any foreign races in Qin Village. Even though the Heaven Awakened world was quite chaotic, this increased their chances of success. Now, not only could they attack indigenous villages and outlander villages, but they could also attack foreign races' villages. In Holy Light City, business had returned to normal. Before, because of the 10,000 Flower Festival, countless people had left the city, causing business to be quite bad. However, now that the 10,000 Flower Festival had ended, business had returned to normal. In the following period of time, Zhao Fu felt that there wasn't much to do. After all, he didn't have to do anything himself, and there were people taking care of things. Zhao Fu felt quite bored, so he decided to properly plan out Qin Village. In actuality, Zhao Fu had left this to Li Si, and he had done a very good job. Qin Village was now divided into East, West, South, and North. Just like the system main cities, it was divided into residential areas and commercial areas, and everything was well planned out. As for the construction of Qin Village, there was no need for Zhao Fu to do it himself, as his subordinates had done a very good job. Perhaps after they finished researching intermediate teleportation channels, they would be able to open up a path to the outside world and develop some special industries. Zhao Fu thought of a unique fruit in the Forest of Horrors. which was the black forest fruit. It was as big as a plum and was quite black. Its flesh was bright red, and it tasted quite good. Given how big his territory was, it would be a waste not to grow some. The black forest fruit could be sold as a special industry in the outside world, and it would be a good source of income. As such, Zhao Fu ordered his people to mass plant black forest fruit trees. Time gradually passed, and soon, a few days had passed. On this day, Bai Qi came to report that his cultivation had officially broken through to stage 1. This caused Zhao Fu to feel quite happy, as there was finally a stage 1 person in Qin village. At the same time, Zhao Fu looked at Bai Qi's stats curiously. Name, Bai Qi grade. Sisis title, Killing God profession. Stage 1 general, achievement points, commoner race. Human age, 24, 110, loyalty, 100 stats, strength, 38, intelligence, 22, constitution, 29, agility, 25, cultivation. Stage 1, Stage 0, cultivation technique. Qin cultivation technique skills. Qi / basic sword technique. Equipment. Ice Star slashing sword. After looking at Bai Qi's stats, Zhao Fu found that apart from his stats, his profession had also changed. He was now a Stage 1 general, and his lifespan had increased from 100 to 110, which was an increase of 10%. Zhao Fu did not pay too much attention to this, and he instead looked at the differences between the Stage 1 general profession and the previous general profession. Stage 1 general. Grade, C+, description. Evolved from a general, effect, can train a general's exclusive military profession. Exclusive military profession, unnamed. Grade, D-, description. Exclusive military profession personally trained by a Stage 1 general. Can use military professions that have been developed in history or train new ones. Current limit, 100. Effect, can obtain skills equivalent to the profession. Chapter 99. Even though there were only 100 unique professions for Stage 1 generals, as generals became stronger in the future, this number would increase. There were 2 types of unique professions. The first was to train new professions, and the second was to use historical professions, such as the famous Iron Eagle elite soldiers. New professions and traditional professions both had their own benefits. For example, new professions could be developed based on the current situation and their own strengths, and they would become the most suitable professions. Traditional troops, on the other hand, had gone through the accumulation of history, the baptism of all kinds of wars, and the bloody elimination to become the strongest troops. Of course, Zhao Fu wouldn't make such a decision on his own. Instead, he asked, Bai Qi, what's the matter? He asked, Bai Qi, what are your thoughts? Bai Qi was not in a hurry to reply. After thinking for a while, he said, Your Majesty. After thinking for a while, he said, Your Majesty, I want to train with the professions that I'm most proficient in. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and asked about his unique professions. Iron Eagle elite soldier, D- grade, description, Qin village's most elite soldier. Not only are their swordsmanship extraordinary, but they are also proficient in both horse and foot combat. Effects. Receive Stage 2 sword skill and horsemanship. Now that Stage 1 generals could train unique professions, the number of generals was incredibly important. No wonder most generals could only be obtained after raising a village to the level of a town. Also, after reaching Stage 1, increasing one's cultivation by another stage will give 1 + 2 to all attributes. Right now, Zhao Fu's cultivation was only at Stage 0 to 7, and he was still some distance away from Stage 1. He felt that his talent was still quite lacking, but after obtaining King's power and Fate power, his cultivation speed had greatly increased. If it wasn't for the King's power and Fate, Zhao Fu estimated that his cultivation would still be at Stage 0 to 5. Of course, whether a faction was powerful or not depended not only on how powerful the Lord was, but also the overall strength of the faction. Apart from Bai Qi, the person with the highest cultivation in Qin village was Old Log. Back when they had attacked Log village, Old Log was already at Stage 0 to 6, and after such a long time, he was already at the peak of stage 0 to 9. He was only a step away from stage 1, and he was even faster than Zhang Dahu, who had SS grade. Zhao Fu didn't know what profession old Lo would unlock, but he hoped that it would be a magic profession. Low-grade magic skills were useless now, so Zhao Fu didn't spend money on low-grade skills like fireballs. After all, they could be easily blocked by shields. High-grade magic system cities also had them, but there weren't many of them, so they wouldn't be of much use. The Iron Eagle elite soldiers that Bai Qi had trained were all at his disposal. Afterwards, the team that had been exploring outside for a few days came back with 2 normal grade city creation stones. Now, Zhao Fu had 32 villages, and they also brought back news that they had found an advanced Outlander village. This alien village was different from the other alien tribes he had seen. This time, the alien tribe he had seen looked like a rat. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite interested. He gathered his soldiers, and after a day or so, they found this Outlander village. These Outlanders were indeed different from the other Outlanders. They were 6 meters tall and had humanoid bodies, but they looked like rats in every other aspect. For example, they had rat heads, rat fur, and rat tails. What made Zhao Fu even more surprised was that this Outlander village seemed to be on a historical remnant. This historical remnant looked like a palace that was built on a mountain, and the stone was white. Some of the buildings in the historical remnant had collapsed, while others were perfectly preserved. The historical remnant looked quite ancient, and it definitely had a long history. Seeing this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel delighted. After all, historical remnants often contained massive benefits. For example, everything that Zhao Fu had obtained in the underground passageway counted as a historical remnant. Now that he had found such a historical remnant, he felt quite excited. However, before there was any movement from Zhao Fu's side, the rat folk discovered Zhao Fu's group. It could be said that they were extremely sensitive to changes in their environment, and just like ordinary rats, they would run away at the slightest sign of trouble. Seeing the rat men, who had been laughing and laughing, suddenly become alert, the rat men, who had been outside the village, also rushed into the village. Seeing that they had been discovered, Zhao Fu smiled and rode on Little Black with the 10 Kings' undead cavalrymen behind him, and a large number of soldiers and skeletons walked out. Seeing that there were so many enemies, the rat folk within the village started to panic, and they began to speak in the rat folk language, looking quite nervous. There were roughly 6,000 or so rat folk in the rat folk village, and there were only 2 types of soldiers: scimitar-wielding rat folk and bow-wielding rat folk. This village was built on a tall historical remnant, and just the walls were 10 meters tall. There didn't seem to be any doors, only a 2-meter-wide hole, which was completely blocked off. This made it quite difficult for Zhao Fu to force his way in. "Your Majesty, how do you think we should help?" Zhang Dahu asked as he cupped his hands. This time, because Bai Qi had been training the Iron Eagle elite soldiers, he had been preparing at Qin village and hadn't come with Zhao Fu. Hearing Zhang Dahu's words, Zhao Fu thought about it and said, "Surround it." It's impossible to force their way in, so we can only surround it. After all, these Outlanders don't know how to grow crops, and they will run out of food sooner or later. It'll just take a bit longer. Hearing this, Zhang Dahu obeyed and had 4,000 soldiers surround the Ratfolk village. As for the skeletons, they didn't do anything because they didn't have much intelligence. The 10 Kings' undead cavalrymen directly obeyed Zhao Fu's orders, and they didn't listen to anyone else's orders. Seeing that Zhao Fu's group had surrounded them, the rat folk started to squeak, seeming to be on guard as they communicated with each other. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and called Zhang Dahu over. He whispered something into his ear and had Little Gray follow him. Within the rat folk village, a few elderly rat folk with white whiskers were chattering about something. One of them said, "Look, that human has surrounded us. What do we do now?" Another rat folk with a hoarse voice said, "Even though we've stored some food, if that human continues to surround us like this, we'll run out of food. We can only fight with that human and let him see how powerful we are," a rat folk with a resolute voice said. Chapter 100. If we charge out, they'll definitely have the undead charge at us and waste our strength. Then, they'll use their elites to kill us, and we'll definitely lose. The rat folk who had spoken first retorted. Then what do you think we should do? The rat folk who had said that he wanted to fight with Zhao Fu said angrily when he saw how cowardly the other rat folk were. Suddenly, the rat folk who had been silent this entire time suddenly said, "Didn't we dig 3 secret tunnels, just in case? Now, we have 2 choices. One is to use this secret tunnel to secretly escape." No. Before that rat folk could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the other rat folk, who said, "If we want to secretly escape, we have to take the city creation stone with us. However, if we choose to relocate, that human will definitely discover us. At the same time, we can't just give up on the city creation stone. Also, we've guarded this historical remnant for so long and have only explored a bit of it. Are you willing to give up on such a large piece of meat?" AI. The rat folk who had been talking about the secret tunnel side and said, "We can only use the second option, which is to use this secret tunnel to make use of our special forces to attack from the inside. We should be able to deal a heavy blow to the human army." Hearing this, all of the rat folk nodded. They had no other choice. Time gradually passed, and the sun gradually set. A fiery cloud appeared on the horizon, and a few twinkling stars appeared in the blue sky. As the sun completely set, twinkling stars also appeared in the night sky. There was no moon today, but although there was no moon, the sky was full of stars, so it was not too dark. Zhao Fu's side lit torches, and he didn't seem to be on guard at all. It was as if he didn't place these rat folk in his eyes at all, and some of the soldiers even took out wine to drink. This made the rat folk on the walls feel quite angry, and they swore to themselves, "We'll show those humans how powerful we are." The night grew darker and darker, and soon it was 12 p.m. On the surface, it looked like only a few teams were patrolling in Zhao Fu's camp, while everyone else had returned to their tents to sleep. Seeing this, the rat folk felt that their opportunity had come, and they immediately started to whisper to each other as they carried out their plan. A group of rat folk had passed through the 3 secret passages and arrived outside the village. There were roughly 2,000 rat folk in this group, and the rat folk on the walls secretly let down ropes, waiting for another group of 2,000 rat folk to attack and disrupt Zhao Fu's group. Following this, the rat folk on the wall would descend from the ropes and fight with Zhao Fu from the other side. This was a perfect pincer attack, and if Zhao Fu was caught in a pincer attack, he would indeed be in great danger, and it was possible that he would be forced to run away. According to the plan, the 2,000 rat folk had already walked out of the passageway and attacked Zhao Fu's camp under the cover of the night. However, in the next second, whoosh, 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 suddenly a series of sonic booms sounded out, startling all of the rat folk, and they yelled, "Ambush!" The rat folk immediately scattered, but it was a pity that they were still within range of the rain of arrows, and countless rat folk were killed by the arrows. Zhang De, who had been hiding nearby, walked out and loudly laughed as he said, "His Majesty was right. These rat folk have the same habits as rats and love to dig holes." Luckily, Little Gray's nose is better than a dog's and was able to discover these 3 secret passages. Oh, Little Gray unhappily howled at Zhang De, revealing its white fangs as it prepared to bite Zhang De. Zhang De felt quite awkward and hurriedly said, all right, let's not talk about your nose being better than a dog's." Oh, Little Gray continued to howl unhappily. Zhang De thought about it and understood, and he felt quite speechless as he said, "I won't call you Little Gray anymore. I'll call you Gray Wolf King, all right?" To Little Gray, only Zhao Fu could call it Little Gray. No one else could. As such, it could only be called the Gray Wolf King. Only then did Little Gray satisfactorily lie on the ground, and Zhang Dahu looked at the battlefield. He found that there were dozens of figures that were abnormally agile and were able to dodge the dense rain of arrows. They were also dressed quite strangely, as they seemed to be wearing hoods. Seeing that most of the rat folk had been killed, Zhang Dahu did not continue to order his people to shoot, and he led his people to chase after the dozens of escaping rat folk. An hour later, The rat folk on the town walls anxiously waited, wondering what was going on. It was already past the scheduled time, so why hadn't the rat folk attacked yet? Within the rat folk village, a few rat folk were anxiously pacing back and forth in the hall. They did not know what had happened to the group of rat folk, but they had a bad feeling. What? Zhao Fu's expression darkened as he looked at the kneeling Zhang Dahu and the innocent-looking Lil Gray. Following this, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief and asked, "Speak. How did 50 of your 1,500 people get injured and let those 10 or so rat folk escape?" Zhang Dahu let out a sigh of relief and reported, "Your Majesty, originally, I followed your instructions to ambush and kill that rat man, and everything went smoothly. But there were dozens of rat men who were extremely agile and dodged almost all the arrows. Then, they fled to the side. Of course, I gave the order to chase after them, but the rat men ran into a dense forest and disappeared without a trace like a fish in the sea. However, with Little Gray's nose, we were able to chase after them, but who would have thought that they would dare to ambush us? Of course, I followed your Majesty's careful battle strategy. However, I never thought that 50 of our brothers would be injured. I killed 20 or so rat folk, but I couldn't find the other 10 or so rat folk. I've already ordered people to lie in ambush around a few hidden paths. Once they appear, we'll kill them all." "Oh, are those rat folk really that powerful?" Zhao Fu asked curiously. It wasn't that he didn't trust Zhang Dahu, but he was curious as to why those 30 or so rat folk were so powerful. "Your Majesty, I brought back a few corpses. Come and take a look," Zhang Dahu said. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded, and a few soldiers brought in a few rat folk corpses. Zhao Fu looked at them and found that they were indeed different from normal rat folk. They were wearing black hooded clothes, which were wide enough to cover their appearances and tight enough to not hinder their movements. They had a short sword tied to each of their hands, and there seemed to be some sort of mechanism on their arms that allowed them to pull out and withdraw their short swords at any time. Chapter 101. These rat folk were just like ordinary rat folk in other aspects, and there was nothing special about them. Ordinary rat folk weren't very strong either, and now that the Qin village's soldiers had all sorts of stat bonuses, they could almost take on orcs by themselves. As such, dealing with these rat folk would be a piece of cake. From their clothes and weapons, it seemed that the reason why these rat folk were so powerful was because of their profession, and this profession was definitely related to the historical remnant. Zhao Fu became more and more interested in the historical remnant, and his gaze fell on Zhang Du, who was kneeling on the ground. Zhao Fu thought about it and said, "Get up." Hearing this, Zhang Dahu let out a sigh of relief. He had been prepared to be punished by Zhao Fu, but Zhao Fu didn't say anything. It seemed that Zhao Fu didn't plan on punishing him. In actuality, if Zhang Dahu was at fault, Zhao Fu definitely would have punished him. However, if Zhang Dao hadn't done anything wrong, why would Zhao Fu punish him? Man proposes, God disposes. No matter how meticulous a plan was, accidents could happen. So Zhao Fu didn't blame Zhang Dahu. Following this, Zhao Fu took the rat folk he had captured and used torture to force them to submit. Just like before, he tried to persuade the other rat folk to surrender. I'm sure you all know by now that I've killed the other 2,000 rat folk. Right now, your village only has 4,000 soldiers, and they won't be able to stop my attack. Look at how many races there are under my command, because I treat all races equally. As long as you surrender to me, I won't mistreat you. As Zhao Fu spoke, the rat folk loudly translated for him. Even though almost every time they tried to persuade them to surrender, they still had to do it. After all, obtaining a village without sacrificing a single soldier was the best outcome. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the rat folk started to panic. They finally understood why the group of rat folk had not attacked. It was because they had all been killed. Now, there were only 4,000 or so rat folk left. How could they stop this human? This news quickly reached the ears of the rat folk in the village, causing them to sigh heavily. The bad premonition in their hearts was finally confirmed. Now that the secret passage has been discovered, we won't be able to escape. If we continue to defend it, We won't be able to hold on for long. What do you think we should do? One of the rat men asked. Why don't we surrender? We've already lost, and we can't just keep going like this. One of the rat folk said dejectedly. No. Hearing one of the rat folk say that he wanted to surrender, the rat folk who had been in charge of fighting earlier shouted, If we don't surrender now, what do you think we should do? Hearing his words, the rat folk who had previously said that they would surrender shouted angrily. Hearing this, the rat folk paused and thought for a moment before saying, We still have a chance. Hearing his words, the other rat men hurriedly asked, What's the other chance? At that moment, the rat folks said, As long as we capture the enemy leader alive, they won't be able to do anything to us. We can also kill the enemy leader, and without a leader, they won't be able to take down our village and we'll leave. What about now? Should we send out all of our special soldiers to assassinate their leader? One of the rat men asked. That won't be possible. Even though our special soldiers are powerful, we've already alerted them. The enemy leader will definitely be on guard, and it will be very difficult for our soldiers to succeed, another rat man with a hoarse voice said after thinking for a moment. Hearing this, the other rat men nodded. Suddenly, one of the rat men thought of something and said, Isn't the enemy leader trying to persuade us to surrender? We could pretend to surrender and have our soldiers set up an ambush before attacking. Hearing this plan, all of the rat men agreed. Following this, they came to the wall and yelled at Zhao Fu, Esteemed sir, we're willing to surrender, but we want to talk to you in detail. We are willing to surrender, but we want to talk to you in detail. You can withdraw your soldiers for a while, and we will come down and talk to you personally. However, neither side can bring a single soldier with them. Hearing this, Zhao Fu didn't even need to think to know that it was definitely a trap. However, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu still agreed and ordered all of his soldiers to retreat. Zhang Dahou understood how dangerous it was because he had personally seen how terrifying those special rat men were. They were completely invisible and could suddenly attack, so he couldn't help but say, Your Majesty, it's too dangerous. It's best that you don't go. I'll go in your place. Hearing Zhang Dahou's words, Zhao Fu lightly shook his head and said, No need. I know what I'm doing. Zhang Dahou didn't say anything because he trusted Zhao Fu. After all, Zhao Fu was their king, so he led his soldiers to retreat 5,000 meters or so. However, just in case, Zhang Dahou still went to support Zhao Fu. It was the middle of the night, so it was quite dark. There was a bonfire next to Zhao Fu, and the flames were so tall that they could light up the surrounding 20 meters. Zhao Fu stood where he was, and Zhang Dahou led all of his soldiers to retreat. Seeing that Zhao Fu had agreed to their request, the rat men on the walls inwardly felt delighted, and everything proceeded according to plan. Following this, Zhao Fu watched as the hole that had been blocked up was slowly moved away, and a few rat men walked out. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. Through the information he had gathered from the rat men that had surrendered, he knew that these rat men were the ones in charge of the village. At the same time, countless black figures slid down from a hidden corner using ropes and merged with the darkness of the night as they slowly approached Zhao Fu. The rat men slowly walked to within 10 meters of Zhao Fu with smiles on their faces, looking incredibly kind and harmless, as if they really were going to surrender. Esteemed Lord, may I ask where you've come from? The rat men had wanted to get close to Zhao Fu and attack, while he wasn't paying attention. However, Zhao Fu did not appreciate their kindness at all, and he looked around and coldly laughed as he said, Are you still not going to attack? Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the rat men were given a big fright, and their expressions fell as they yelled coldly and savagely, Kill this human. Following this, countless black-hooded rat folk appeared around Zhao Fu. There were 200 or so of them, and their hoods covered their faces, making them look quite mysterious. These rat folk stretched out their hands, which were tied to their hands, and the two short swords hidden in their sleeves stabbed out. These were called hidden blades. Their movements were incredibly agile and looked quite handsome as they turned into countless black figures and attacked Zhao Fu. Chapter 102. In Zhao Fu's eyes, all of the rat folk within the range of the king's domain seemed to move at a much slower speed, leaving behind afterimages. Despite this, the rat folk were still abnormally fast, and they appeared in front of Zhao Fu in an instant. They waved their hands, and their hidden blades flashed with a cold light even in the darkness of the night, causing people's hairs to stand on end as they slashed towards Zhao Fu's neck. Luckily, Zhao Fu was different from before. Even though these rat folk were powerful, they were not on the same level as Zhao Fu. As soon as the first rat folk appeared in front of Zhao Fu raised the sky demon sword and slashed downwards. A sword light flashed as the first rat folk's chest spurted out a large amount of blood. Its body was split in half from its shoulder to its abdomen, and the pieces of its corpse and organs fell to the ground, dyeing the ground red. Following this, a second rat folk appeared to Zhao Fu's right. Zhao Fu gripped his sword and slashed to the right, sending out another sword light. The second rat folk's body was also split in half, and the pieces of its corpse and organs fell to the ground. Following this, a third rat folk appeared behind Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu turned and stabbed out with the sky demon sword. The sword pierced into the rat folk's heart, and the sky demon sword's terrifying power instantly shattered the rat folk's chest. However, the fourth, fifth, and sixth rat folk, under their hoods, the countless rat folk's eyes were incredibly resolute and fearless. Even in the face of death, they would bravely advance, and they did not even cry out in the face of death. This was something that they persevered with. When they had placed their hands on the stone steel, a sentence had sounded out in their minds: "I am an assassin." As long as they could kill their target, they would disregard everything else. Only by killing Zhao Fu could the rat folk village be safe and return to normal. Only then would the rat folks' lives be better. And this was what they persevered with. As such, they did not fear death. The rat folk assassins were incredibly fast, and their attacks were extremely cunning. Each of their attacks was fatal, and they all targeted vital areas such as Zhao Fu's eyes, neck, and heart. The naked eye seemed to be unable to capture their movements. All that could be seen were black shadows, accompanied by two cold white lights, appearing in front of Zhao Fu. However, in the next moment, they were killed by Zhao Fu. However, these rat folk assassins were incredibly powerful. They were like ghosts, and there were no openings that they couldn't hide. They had hidden blades in their hands, and if Zhao Fu wasn't careful, he would be injured. Under the countless rat folk's attacks, even Zhao Fu felt his hairs stand on end. At that moment, a rat folk assassin appeared in front of Zhao Fu, and its hidden blade gave off a white light as it stabbed towards Zhao Fu's heart. Zhao Fu was forced to dodge to the side. Just as he dodged this attack, another rat folk assassin appeared on Zhao Fu's left. It swung its hidden blade towards Zhao Fu's neck, and Zhao Fu could only raise his foot and vigorously kick out, sending the rat folk assassin flying. However, in the next moment, another rat folk assassin appeared behind Zhao Fu and slashed towards the back of Zhao Fu's head with its hidden blade. Just as it was about to succeed, Zhao Fu spun and slashed out with a black sword chi, sending the rat folk flying. Under this powerful sword chi, the rat folk's body was reduced to countless pieces of flesh in midair. The rat folk assassins were abnormally powerful, and even though it seemed like Zhao Fu was surrounded by danger, overall, these rat folk were unable to harm Zhao Fu. If these rat folk rushed up, there would only be one outcome for them: death. Bright red flowers blossomed as lives died. Only 30 or so rat folk assassins remained of the original 200 or so rat folk assassins, and the ground was covered with countless mutilated corpses. Blood dyed the ground red, making it seem like hell, and the pungent smell of blood filled the air. The rat folk had never expected Zhao Fu to be so powerful. By now, Zhang Dahu and his soldiers had arrived, and seeing that their plan had completely failed, the rat folk sent out 10 rat folk assassins to keep Zhao Fu busy while the other 20 escorted them back to the village. Zhao Fu calmly stood where he was and looked at the 10 rat folk assassins who had surrounded him from all directions. He slashed out with his sword. A black sword light flashed out like a crescent moon, piercing into the 10 rat-folk assassins' bodies. The 10 rat-folk assassins flew backwards and coughed up large amounts of blood. Their internal organs had been destroyed, and they instantly died. Zhao Fu held a sword as he stood where he was, and bright red blood dripped down the sky demon's sword. Suddenly, the blood on the ground seemed to be controlled by a formless energy and flowed towards the sky demon's sword. The sky demon's sword was like a wind cave, absorbing all of the blood and giving off a clear sword hum. This was the joy of killing. Master, hurry, hurry, continue. I want more. When Zhao Fu heard the panting voice in his mind, he felt quite speechless. He looked at the fleeing rat folk and slowly raised the sky demon's sword, pointing it at them. A massive image of a demon with massive wings flew out from the sword and flew towards the 30 or so rat folk. The massive demon image was incredibly fast, and it flew past the 30 or so rat folk. Immediately, all of the rat folk stopped moving, and their bodies withered as if they had lost all of their moisture. They became desiccated corpses and fell to the ground dead. This was the sky demon feast, and it could summon a massive image of a demon. It could devour the essence of flesh and blood, which would be absorbed by the sword. This was one of the sky demon sword's many special abilities, and it was one of the reasons why an epic grade weapon was so powerful. Master, hurry. I want more. It's not enough. Suddenly, he heard the sky demon's panting voice in his mind. Zhao Fu immediately put it back into his king's ring, and the sky demon's somewhat angry voice sounded out in his mind. Humph. Human, you won't be able to obtain my favor by doing this. Zhao Fu didn't mind, and he ignored the sky demon's words. After all, this fellow's attitude could change at any moment. By now, Zhang Dahu and his soldiers had arrived. It seemed like a lot had happened, but everything had passed quite quickly. Your Majesty, this subordinate deserves to die for coming too late. Zhang Dahu looked at the corpses on the ground, which had all been dealt with by Zhao Fu. How could a king fight at the front while his subordinates enjoyed life behind him? As such, he and the other generals knelt down and begged for forgiveness. All right, you can all rise. Zhao Fu didn't mind this at all. Following this, Zhao Fu ordered his soldiers to once again surround the ratfolk village. Before, a few ratfolk had wanted to kill Zhao Fu so that Zhao Fu's army would be leaderless and fall apart. However, they had never thought that Zhao Fu would live and they would die. The ratfolk village immediately fell into chaos, and countless ratfolk looked terrified as they looked at Zhao Fu's soldiers surrounding them. Zhao Fu tried to persuade them to surrender, and, as expected, all of the ratfolk chose to surrender. Soon, Zhao Fu officially took over the ratfolk village. Following this, Zhao Fu entered the ratfolk village and went to the entrance of a historical remnant. There was a white stone stele that was 2 meters tall, and it had been eroded over countless years. The surface of the stone stele was somewhat uneven, and there were some words on it. Even though Zhao Fu didn't recognize them, he could understand what they meant. Chapter 103. After looking at the stone stele, Zhao Fu entered the historical remnant. There were torches on the walls, so it wasn't dark inside. This place had most likely been developed by the ratfolk, and the ratfolk assassin profession most likely came from here. Zhao Fu continued onwards and came to a large hall. It was 30 meters wide, and the floor was made of smooth marble. There were paintings at the top of the hall, which depicted people living happy and peaceful lives. Everyone's faces were brimming with smiles. Zhao Fu looked at Zhao Fu and saw that Zhao Fu was quite happy. There was nothing else in the hall apart from stone stele at the center. This stone stele looked like a profession-changed stone stele, but it was different from normal profession-changed stone steles. This stone stele was white and had 6 sides. Zhao Fu walked over and looked at it, and he received a piece of information. Assassin order, infant B grade military description, an assassin who believes in the light and creates a beautiful world. Effect, receives assassination technique. This was most likely the ratfolk assassin profession, and it was B grade. It was indeed a powerful profession. Of course, Zhao Fu also had the SS Grade King's undead cavalry, but there were only 10 of them. However, the assassin profession could be changed in large numbers. They were quite useful, and in the future, Zhao Fu would have to rely on them to carry out all sorts of intelligence and assassination missions. Their names would spread far and wide with Qin, and countless people would tremble in fear upon hearing their names. Zhao Fu looked up and saw that there was a tightly shut door in front of him. The rat folk most likely hadn't opened it yet, and Zhao Fu walked over and tried to open it. However, a wave of energy came from the door, repelling Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu received a system announcement. This door could only be opened by becoming an assassin, and after thinking about it, Zhao Fu went back and placed his hand on the profession change stone steel. 09 small say net. Now, Zhao Fu had the king profession and the demon priest profession. However, these two professions were quite special. One was not a military profession, while the other was a faith profession. Of course, Zhao Fu didn't have any faith in God Kerr. Zhao Fu didn't know if he could still change his profession to the assassin profession. He mainly wanted to enter that door and take a look. After placing his hand on the stone tablet, a voice rang out in Zhao Fu's mind. Do you wish to become an assassin? Zhao Fu nervously chose yes. Then, the stone tablet emitted a faint light, and Zhao Fu's vision blurred. He appeared in another space. This space was similar to the hall that Zhao Fu had been in before, but it was very dim, and it gave off a mysterious and solemn atmosphere. Apart from this, there was another person in front of Zhao Fu. This person wore the same clothes as the rat folk from before, and he wore a hood that covered his face, revealing only the sides of his face. His lower body was quite tight, but it didn't hinder his movements. From his build, he seemed to be a man. He stood there silently, as if he did not exist. His cold eyes under the hood examined Zhao Fu. 09 small say net. Zhao Fu calmly stood there and looked at him. At the same time, he thought about what was going on. He remembered that he had chosen to change his profession and had appeared in this place. He continued to examine Zhao Fu, and suddenly, a pendant on his chest gave off a faint white light. Only then did he slowly speak, his voice somewhat hoarse. Maintain the light in your heart. Remember that you are an assassin who walks in the darkness and serves the light. All things are false, and all things are permitted. Under the hidden blade, all things are equal. After he spoke those words, Zhao Fu's vision blurred again, and he returned to the hall from before. At the same time, a system announcement sounded out. Profession change successful. This profession was indeed not simple, and it required a careful examination before it could be changed. It was different from other professions that could be casually changed, so Zhao Fu was quite surprised. Zhao Fu looked at his profession and found that not only had he received a large number of bonuses, but he had also obtained a series of skills: stealth, flash, assassination, ghostly body, and hidden blade. With Zhao Fu's identity, he naturally did not need to carry out any intelligence or assassination missions. However, this profession was still useful, and Zhao Fu wanted to use this profession to take a look at the other side of the door. Zhao Fu stood in front of the door and stretched out his hand to push it open. This time, the door did not have that repelling force, so Zhao Fu was able to easily push it open. Behind the door was a passage that was quite dim. Zhao Fu thought for a moment and ordered his subordinates to prepare black hoods and 2 hidden blades. Zhao Fu guessed that since this door could only be opened after changing his profession, it had to be related to that profession. As such, Zhao Fu also prepared a set and wanted to give it a try. Your Majesty, why don't we send a few people in first? It might be quite dangerous inside. A few of the generals said worriedly to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu shook his head and replied, there's no need. It might be quite dangerous inside, but it might be similar to a legacy trial. There won't be any life-threatening dangers, so there's no need to worry. Hearing this, the generals retreated to the side. Zhao Fu made his preparations and stepped into the passage. The door behind him slowly closed, and Zhao Fu stood where he was and looked around. After not discovering anything, he started to walk forwards. His surroundings were quite silent, and only the sound of his own breathing could be heard. Adding on the dim surroundings, the atmosphere was quite terrifying. Zhao Fu followed this path and came to a strange space. This space was quite big, and it looked like a forest. The light in this forest was quite dim and blurry, and the sky was gray-white. The grass and trees were a deathly gray, and the ground was covered with rotten leaves and branches. There was not a single bit of life in this space, and it was filled with an aura of death. Zhao Fu stood where he was and looked around. Just as he was about to move forwards, a large tree seemed to come to life and waved its branches toward Zhao Fu. Faced with this sudden change, Zhao Fu hurriedly dodged, but the tree's branches were simply too big, and it was impossible for Zhao Fu to dodge. Following this, Zhao Fu crossed his arms and unleashed his king's domain, forming a 2-meter-wide black barrier with dragon inscriptions. However, he was still sent flying. After landing on the ground, Zhao Fu carefully tried to walk to the other side. However, just as he was about to approach the forest, the tree seemed to come to life and started to attack Zhao Fu. Luckily, this time, Zhao Fu was prepared and was able to dodge. However, this happened again and again, and he was unable to approach the forest. Zhao Fu could only stand there and think. If he wanted to continue forwards, he had to pass through the forest. However, as soon as he got close, the tree started to attack him, making it impossible for him to enter the forest. He had definitely overlooked something. Suddenly, something flashed in Zhao Fu's mind, and he smiled as he realized that he had been too stupid. Zhao Fu thought back to the words that he had said to Zhao Fu when he had changed his profession. Keep the light in your heart, and remember that you are an assassin. Right now, Zhao Fu's way of thinking was that of a normal person, not an assassin's. He was already an assassin, so he naturally had to think like an assassin. Chapter 104. This time, the trees didn't attack, causing Zhao Fu to let out a sigh of relief. This forest was quite big, and he couldn't relax for even a moment. Otherwise, he would be attacked by the trees, which was quite difficult because he had to constantly be on his toes. However, if he wanted to continue onwards, he had to do this. As such, Zhao Fu lowered his body and carefully advanced, just in case something strange happened. After walking for a while, Zhao Fu hid behind a tree because he found a monster in front of him. This monster had a humanoid body and was 2 meters tall. It had gray-white skin and very long arms that were dragging on the ground. Its palms were like claws, and it didn't have a face, only a pair of large ears. Seeing this monster, Zhao Fu quickly hid behind a tree, and the monster didn't discover Zhao Fu. Not too long after it left. Following this, Zhao Fu continued onwards. Suddenly, Zhao Fu encountered another monster similar to the one from before, but this one didn't have large ears. Instead, it had a large eye. When the monster turned its head, Zhao Fu was given a big fright and understood that he had been discovered. In the next second, the monster's body instantly disappeared and reappeared in front of Zhao Fu. It raised its right claw and slashed down at Zhao Fu. So fast, Zhao Fu couldn't help but exclaim. He activated the mechanisms in his hands, causing 2 hidden blades to shoot out. Zhao Fu crossed his arms in front of him. Bang! A massive force slammed into Zhao Fu, causing him to slide back 5 or 6 meters. Zhao Fu's stats weren't any lower than a stage 2 soldier's, and it was just that his cultivation was a bit weaker. However, he had still been pushed back 5 or 6 meters. This showed just how powerful this monster was. No wonder the rat folk hadn't been able to clear this place. It was simply impossible for them to win against this monster. Facing this monster, Zhao Fu had no choice but to use his king's power and send it into the hidden blades. The silver-white blades were dyed black, and there were dragon inscriptions on them. This time, it was Zhao Fu's turn to attack. He leaned forwards and stamped his feet on the ground. Bang! The ground cracked open as Zhao Fu's body turned into a black shadow and rushed towards the monster. Seeing Zhao Fu charge towards it, the monster calmly stood its ground. When Zhao Fu was 2 meters away from it, the monster raised its hand and slashed out like lightning. Its sharp claws drew out 5 arcs of light, and it looked as if they could pierce through stone as it attacked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu raised the hidden blade in his left hand to block the monster's claws, while the hidden blade in his right hand stabbed towards the monster. However, at that moment, the monster reached out with its other hand and grabbed Zhao Fu's right arm. Immediately, Zhao Fu was shocked. In the next moment, the monster grabbed Zhao Fu's right arm and threw Zhao Fu away like a sandbag. Bang! Zhao Fu's body was thrown more than 10 meters away and crashed into a large tree. The tree trunk trembled and many leaves fell. Cough! After landing on the ground, Zhao Fu coughed out a mouthful of blood. This monster was too strong. If he was not careful, he would be injured. Zhao Fu took out a healing pill and swallowed it before standing up. At that moment, one of the monster's massive eyes looked at Zhao Fu without a trace of emotion. Following this, the monster's body disappeared and reappeared in front of Zhao Fu, grabbing at Zhao Fu like a black tiger, trying to dig out his heart. Zhao Fu quickly bent down and dodged to the side. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as the monster's claw pierced half a meter deep into the tree trunk. At that moment, Zhao Fu, who had just dodged, grabbed the opportunity and slashed at the monster. However, in the next second, the monster turned around and used its other claw to whip at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's hidden blade did not even hit the monster, and his entire body was sent flying by the monster. He fell to the ground, and Zhao Fu felt like his body was going to fall apart. How could this monster be so strong? It's too fast. Suddenly, Zhao Fu suddenly remembered and felt like he had forgotten something. I'm an assassin. The assassin class was a class that was extremely fast and agile. He hadn't even been able to display the full potential of this class. At that moment, the monster's body flashed and appeared in front of Zhao Fu. It raised its arm and slapped at Zhao Fu, who was still on the ground. Zhao Fu immediately used Ghost Body. After changing his profession, he had obtained Ghost Body. It was a movement skill that made his body abnormally agile. Just as the monster's claw was about to hit Zhao Fu's body twisted in a strange way and he dodged the monster's attack. Then, he jumped up from the ground. In the next second, Zhao Fu immediately used Flash. His body turned into a black shadow as he flashed and jumped around the monster. The monster raised its head and the eyeballs on its face quickly moved, trying to catch Zhao Fu's figure. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed by as the monster clawed at its surroundings. This attack missed, and Zhao Fu appeared beside it. However, the monster's reaction speed was quite fast. It twisted its body and swung its other claw at Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu's body was as nimble as a snake's, and he dodged the attack. The hidden blade in his hand slashed at the monster's waist, leaving a 15-centimeter-long wound. Roar! The monster roared in pain and turned around to swipe at Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu's body flashed, and he appeared 5 meters away. This was the first time that he had attacked the monster's body, and Zhao Fu felt quite happy. However, his expression immediately became serious, because the wound that he had just created had completely healed in just a few seconds. There was not even a scar. After his wounds quickly healed, the monster once again rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu pushed his assassin's agility to the extreme, and he no longer tried to meet the monster head-on. Instead, he chose to dodge. At that moment, Zhao Fu slowly discovered the monster's weaknesses. Every time it attacked, the sides of the monster's waist would become openings. Zhao Fu used these openings to continuously injure the monster. But no matter how many wounds Zhao Fu dealt, the monster would be able to heal in a few seconds without losing a single bit of its strength. There was no way to fight this monster, and Zhao Fu could only think of himself as an assassin. However, he suddenly realized that he was wrong. Assassins existed to assassinate, and they pursued a one-hit kill. This was because they only had one opportunity, and once they lost it, they would never have another. Normally, fatal spots were in the heart and head, and this monster's weaknesses were most likely in these two areas. After realizing this, Zhao Fu started to attack the monster. He first caused a few wounds on the monster's abdomen, causing it to furiously roar and madly attack at Zhao Fu. The monster's claws continuously drew out sharp arcs of light, and an ordinary person would have long since been dismembered. Zhao Fu quickly dodged and evaded the monster's attacks without a trace of panic. He did not attack again because he had now completely regarded himself as an assassin. Only by doing this would he be able to completely fuse with the assassin profession. Under the monster's torrential attacks, Zhao Fu dodged and evaded. Suddenly, a light flashed in Zhao Fu's eyes, and he lowered his body to dodge the monster's claws. He then leaned forwards and stretched out his right hand, activating the hidden blade skill. Pu. Chapter 105. After piercing through the monster's heart, Zhao Fu instantly pulled out his hidden blade and retreated. The monster's corpse powerlessly fell to the ground and turned into a gray gas that dissipated, leaving behind a 2-inch-long rhombus-shaped crystal. 09 small. Net. Seeing that the monster had finally been killed, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Looking at the gray crystal on the ground, Zhao Fu walked over and picked it up in curiosity. Underworld crystal can be fused into equipment to obtain underworld ghost power. Underworld ghost power was most likely that monster's power, and that monster was most likely called an underworld ghost. Zhao Fu didn't know what kind of creature it was. At the same time, he didn't know what the effects of fusing the underworld ghost crystal into equipment would be. Right now, Zhao Fu's hidden blade and clothes were all ordinary items, so fusing the underworld ghost crystal into equipment was a bit of a waste. Of course, Zhao Fu had other high-quality equipment, but Zhao Fu felt that the underworld ghost crystal was more suitable for assassins. Just as Zhao Fu was about to leave, an underworld ghost with large ears seemed to have been attracted by the sounds of the battle. This kind of underworld ghost didn't have eyes, and it relied on its hearing. Its large ears could hear even the smallest sounds, and if one could find a way to suppress it, it would be quite easy to deal with it. However, if one couldn't find a way, this underworld ghost would be even more powerful than underworld ghosts with eyes. After this underworld ghost appeared, it immediately rushed at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu didn't even have a chance to dodge, and the underworld ghost rushed straight at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's body turned into countless shadows as he dodged the attacks. 09 small. Net. In actuality, this was quite helpful to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu had to go through a certain process from behind the scenes to fighting. Even though he could directly obtain great power by raising his stats, Zhao Fu didn't know how to use this power, which meant that he lacked battle experience. After all, King's power was a power that could only be developed through battle. Zhao Fu quickly dodged, and this time, the underworld ghost attack speed was even faster than before. There were a few times when Zhao Fu was almost hit. It couldn't go on like this. Zhao Fu suddenly thought of the knife-throwing skill he had mastered. The flying dagger was a willow leaf-shaped blade that was about the same length as a dagger. The blade was very thin and abnormally sharp, making it extremely lethal. This was one of the long-range attacks that the assassin order had mastered. Zhao Fu had also prepared some of these throwing knives. Zhao Fu immediately retreated 10 or so meters, took out 2 throwing knives, and threw them at the Netherworld ghost. The 2 throwing knives were very fast and shot out like 2 rays of white light. Although the sound of the throwing knives tearing through the air was very soft and ordinary people might not notice it, the Netherworld ghost's hearing was very sharp. It raised its hand and sent the 2 throwing knives flying. Seeing this, Zhao Fu was not disappointed because he had thought of an idea. He could not help but smile. 09 small say net. At the beginning, Zhao Fu had changed into a hoodie, revealing the side of his face. To outsiders, this smile seemed to be filled with mysteriousness and an indescribable sense of handsomeness. This time, Zhao Fu attacked first, continuously using throwing knives to attack the Netherworld ghost from different directions. Unsurprisingly, the throwing knives were all sent flying by the Netherworld ghost. However, Zhao Fu immediately threw out 2 more throwing knives. This time, it was different. After throwing out the two throwing knives, Zhao Fu unleashed his incredible speed and hid his aura as he followed behind the two throwing knives. Bang! Bang! The netherworld ghost waved its hands, and its claws, which seemed to be made of steel, once again sent the two throwing knives flying. At that moment, Zhao Fu attacked. He appeared in front of the netherworld ghost and swung his hidden blade at it. The netherworld ghost discovered Zhao Fu, and it opened its claws and swiped at Zhao Fu. Just as the hidden blade and the claws clashed, Zhao Fu suddenly retracted his attack and dodged to the side. The instant that the netherworld ghost's attack missed, Zhao Fu used the hidden blade to cut open a wound on the netherworld ghost's side. The netherworld ghost furiously roared and raised its claws before slashing down at Zhao Fu. Bang! The netherworld ghost's long and powerful claws slammed into the ground, smashing open a large crater. By now, Zhao Fu had already appeared behind the netherworld ghost and stabbed out. The hidden blade gave off a black light as it stabbed into the netherworld ghost's heart from behind. Immediately, the netherworld ghost's body collapsed and turned into a gray gas that dissipated. A netherworld ghost crystal fell to the ground, and after putting it away, Zhao Fu continued onwards. 7 days later, Zhao Fu arrived at the end of the forest. During these 7 days, Zhao Fu had killed 459 netherworld ghosts, and he had also collected 459 netherworld ghost crystals. Netherworld ghost crystals could be obtained by killing netherworld ghosts, but they weren't as rare as soldier souls. As such, Zhao Fu couldn't help but fuse the two netherworld ghost crystals into his hidden blades. Now, the two ordinary hidden blade stats had become like this. Hidden blade, grade, blue, stats, strength +1, agility +1, description. The hidden blade has been buffed by the underworld ghost's power, giving it bonuses when using assassin skills. The hidden blade also ignores armor. The hidden blades didn't have any stats, but now, not only did they give 2 stats, but they also gave bonuses to assassin skills. This was especially so because of the armor ignore effect. In other words, even if you were wearing armor, the hidden blades would be able to pierce through you. As such, the hidden blades had become killing weapons. After 7 days, Zhao Fu finally arrived at the end of the forest. This meant that Zhao Fu was about to pass this stage. There was a large door at the end of the forest, and it was similar to the door from before. However, there were 50 or so netherworld ghosts standing guard in front of it. Dealing with 50 or so netherworld ghosts at once was quite difficult. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that his goal wasn't to kill netherworld ghosts but to pass this stage. He had already killed many netherworld ghosts, so Zhao Fu created some sounds in the forest to lure the netherworld ghosts over. Now, there were only 20 or so netherworld ghosts left in front of the door. Zhao Fu didn't bother hiding and rushed over. After 7 days of intense training, Zhao Fu had completely changed, not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of temperament. Under the hood, Zhao Fu gave off a mysterious and cold aura as he rushed over. The 20 or so netherworld ghosts discovered him and rushed over, and the two sides quickly clashed. Pooh! As soon as they clashed, Zhao Fu tilted his head and dodged the netherworld ghost's claws. At the same time, he stretched out his right hand and stabbed through its heart. Everything was as fast as lightning, and Zhao Fu was incredibly familiar with this move. Zhao Fu didn't even look at the netherworld ghost that he had killed. His gaze was cold as he stabbed his hidden blade into another netherworld ghost's heart. The netherworld ghosts that had caused a lot of trouble for Zhao Fu in the past were no longer a problem. Zhao Fu quickly killed these netherworld ghosts and put away the netherworld ghost crystals that they dropped. Chapter 106. The 12 statues on the stone stage were all wearing clothes similar to what Zhao Fu was wearing. Zhao Fu could not see their appearances, and he could only see the sides of their faces. Based on their sizes, he could tell that there were men and women, old and young. Of course, Zhao Fu did not recognize these statues, but these 12 people were undoubtedly experts. Even their statues gave off powerful spirit pressure. Zhao Fu then looked at the 12 sets of equipment at the feet of the statues. Each set was made up of 3 types of equipment: a ring, 2 hidden blades, and a piece of clothing. These 3 pieces of equipment were a bit grayish, and although they were a bit dim, they all looked quite extraordinary. For example, the ring was covered with exquisite patterns. The hidden blade gave off a chilling glow, and the clothes seemed even more mysterious. Zhao Fu looked at Zhao Fu and Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu felt quite curious and walked over to take a look. Shadow Ring Battle. Grade, Gold, Stats. All stats +4, Description. One of the 3 pieces of equipment for the warrior's set. This piece of equipment is a legacy piece of equipment that can evolve with its owner, and it contains the previous user's power. After gathering all 3 pieces of equipment, one can obtain the previous owner's legacy. Shadow Sword Battle. Grade, Gold, Stats, Strength +12, Agility +7, Description. One of the 3 pieces of equipment for the warrior's set. This piece of equipment is a legacy piece of equipment that can evolve with its owner, and it contains the previous user's power. After gathering all 3 pieces of equipment, one can obtain the previous owner's legacy. Shadow Clothes Battle. Grade, Gold, Stats, Strength +6, Agility +7, Constitution +6, Description. One of the 3 pieces of equipment for the warrior's set. This piece of equipment is a legacy piece of equipment that can evolve with its owner, and it contains the previous user's power. After gathering all 3 pieces of equipment, one can obtain the previous owner's legacy. Zhao Fu could tell that these 12 sets of equipment were not simple at all. Not only were they legacy pieces of equipment, but they could also evolve with their owner. Just these sets of equipment were quite valuable, and most importantly, they could obtain the previous owner's legacy. Zhao Fu guessed that the previous owner of this set of equipment must have been an incredibly powerful existence, and it was possible that the previous owner of this set of equipment was the 12 statues. The other 11 sets of equipment were Soul Equipment Set, Battle Equipment Set, Kill Equipment Set, Light Equipment Set, Illusion Equipment Set, Decay Equipment Set, Hell Equipment Set, and Blood Equipment Set. The Terror Equipment Set, Tree Equipment Set, and Nothingness Equipment Set. These 12 sets of equipment all contained Legacy's power, and after putting them away, Zhao Fu planned to set up an assassin organization once he went out. Now that he had obtained all of this, Zhao Fu was confident that the assassin organization he had established would definitely become one of the strongest assassin organizations in the world in the future. Its name would definitely spread throughout the world, and it would become one of the most feared organizations in the world. Zhao Fu did not take any of these 12 legacy equipment sets for himself, as these 12 sets were for the 12 leaders. The items for the real leader should still be in the next stage. So, Zhao Fu believed that there would be better equipment in the next stage. Zhao Fu took a look at the Profession Change stone steel in the middle of the 12 stone platforms. Unsurprisingly, it was also a Profession Change stone steel. However, the soldier's profession had changed. Assassin, Order, Growth of Grade Military, Description, an assassin who believes in the light and creates a beautiful world. Effect. Receives Level 1 Assassination Technique. After looking through the soldier's introduction, there weren't many changes. First of all, the fledgling behind the profession had become Growth. The original Grade B soldier had also become Grade A soldier. The other skills hadn't changed much, but they had been strengthened. From how Zhao Fu saw it, this profession was most likely an advanced profession. It had gone from infant to Growth, and it would most likely become an S-grade profession in the next stage. It would also go from Growth to Complete, and there might even be Ultimate and Ultimate professions. In other words, the assassin profession was most likely an SSS grade profession, and this caused Zhao Fu's heart to tremble. Zhao Fu placed his hand on the Profession Change stone steel, and his vision blurred as he appeared in a dark space. There was still a person standing in front of him, looking at him. However, the aura he gave off was many times more terrifying than the previous person. You have killed a total of 473 underworld ghosts. Trial successful. A cold voice sounded from his mouth. Following this, Zhao Fu's vision blurred as he returned to the original space. At the same time, Zhao Fu's profession had become a grade, and he looked at his new skills and felt quite satisfied. Zhao Fu once again pushed open the door and continued onwards, but he was blocked by a blood-red barrier. Zhao Fu wanted to enter, but it seemed that he couldn't. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu couldn't help but say, "Walk in the darkness, serve the light. All things are false, and all things are permitted. Under the hidden blade, all things are equal." This time, after Zhao Fu entered the blood-red barrier, he found that he was in a strange place. He was in ruins, and the sky was blood-red. Everything was deathly silent, and there was an incredibly dense sense of blood and killing. However, what made Zhao Fu's expression even more serious was that all of his power had been sealed, including his king's power. Right now, he only had the strength of an ordinary person. At the same time, Zhao Fu received a message telling him that he had to kill everyone here and survive. As such, Zhao Fu's expression became serious as he carefully advanced. 3 days later, Zhao Fu's body was covered with wounds, and large amounts of blood flowed out of his wounds, dyeing Zhao Fu's body red. Zhao Fu gasped for breath as he weakly pushed open the door to the profession change stone steel. After arriving at a large hall, Zhao Fu looked around and felt disappointed because there was nothing here. Could it be that he had guessed incorrectly? Zhao Fu looked around and found a gray ring on the profession change stone steel. Assassin Lord's Ring, grade, legendary, stats, strength plus 12, agility plus 20, stamina plus 6, description, increases one's assassin profession skills by 200% and reduces the damage dealt by other assassin skills by 60%. Also has perception domain. Any creature that comes within 100 meters of the ring will be detected by you. Also has master-servant power. There is a master-servant relationship between this ring and the 12 legacy assassins' equipment. You can use 12 assassins' power. Seeing this ring, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. His guesses had been correct, and this ring's stats were quite powerful. If he had the chance, he could try out the 12 assassins' power. However, he could not do that right now, as Zhao Fu was already heavily injured. Zhao Fu wore the Assassin Lord's ring on his right hand like the King's ring. The King's ring was on his index finger, while the Assassin Lord's ring was on his middle finger. Chapter 107. After Zhao Fu came out, everyone let out a sigh of relief. This was because Zhao Fu had been in there for 10 days, making everyone feel quite worried. Now that Zhao Fu had come out, everyone felt at ease. 09 small. Net. Seeing Zhao Fu covered in blood, Bai Qi walked over and quickly supported Zhao Fu as he asked worriedly, "Your Majesty, how did you suffer such heavy injuries?" Bai Qi asked worriedly, "Your Majesty, how did you suffer such heavy injuries?" By now, Zhao Fu's injuries had stabilized, but his body was still quite weak. He smiled and explained what had happened within the historical remnant, causing everyone to feel quite shocked. After returning to Qin village, Zhao Fu fully recovered after resting for 1 or 2 days. He returned to the Ratfolk village and found that it was a silver grade village, and Zhao Fu now had 5 silver grade villages. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the Ratfolk barracks and found that there were 3 profession change stone steels. Ratfolk warrior, F+ grade military, description, warriors among the Ratfolk, effect, receives offensive saber technique. Ratfolk archer, E- grade military, description, archers among the Ratfolk, effect, receives precise archery. The first 2 professions were quite ordinary, so Zhao Fu did not pay much attention to them. However, the 3rd profession change stone steel made Zhao Fu feel quite curious. 09 small. Net. Scout. D- grade military, description, Ratfolk most sensitive to changes in their surroundings, effect, receives perception. Looking at this profession's information, Zhao Fu felt that this was the profession that had discovered them. This profession would be quite useful as a scout in future battles. Now, Zhao Fu only left 2,000 people in the rat folk village and brought the other 2,000 back to Qin village. Adding on the fact that the historical remnant was easy to defend and had a teleportation channel, it would not be too dangerous. Zhao Fu also took back 500 soldiers from the bronze concentrate mine. Because the surrounding 100-kilometer radius area was now under the Great Qin village's control, they did not have to worry as much as before. Moreover, after such a long time, Zhao Fu's village's population had reached a bit more than 27,000, so Zhao Fu expanded his army to 6,000 soldiers. At the same time, Qin village's EXP was 110,000, and it was 40,000 EXP away from becoming a town. Zhao Fu was only 200 achievement points away from becoming a second-rank baron. Now that Qin village was about to become a town, it could not continue like this without planning. First of all, town walls could be built, but this required digging up rocks. Over the next few days, Zhao Fu and Bai Qi wandered around the nearby mountains and found a good type of stone. This stone was called white steel rock, and it was white in color. It contained a certain amount of metal, so it was harder than normal stone. It was a good material for building a city. 09 small. Zhao Fu also drew a detailed map of Qin village's construction and made an extremely precise plan. This was because this would be the foundation for all future construction, so they could not be careless. Qin village was now like this. Qin village was in the middle, and there were many ordinary villages around it. There were 4 main villages, and these 4 villages were in the north, south, east, and west directions of Qin village. They acted as a barrier and protected Qin village in the middle. These 4 villages were all silver-grade villages, and they had decent development potential. In the future, Zhao Fu would also use this sort of distribution to protect Qin village. This was because Qin village was not only the foundation of the Qin Empire, but it was also the foundation of everything. It was something that the Qin Empire could not lack in the future, and it was one of the most important things in Zhao Fu's heart. Of course, Zhao Fu would not personally do these things, and he left them to the gnomes and dwarves. The dwarves had some knowledge of construction, and the gnomes were proficient in engineering, so they were quite suitable for this sort of thing. Also, because Qin Zhao was about to become a town, the previous method of managing villages was no longer feasible. After discussing with Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and Li Si, they decided to create a few departments. The first was the Department of Works, which was responsible for everything related to construction in the future. The second was the Department of Revenue. By now, Zhao Fu's population had increased by almost 30,000 people, and it would not be good to not have an accurate household registration system. The household registration system was not only used to calculate the population, but it was also used to better manage the commoners. As such, a kingdom definitely needed a household registration system. The third was the Department of Research, which was responsible for all future research and experiments in Qin village. The fourth was the Department of Agriculture, which was responsible for farming. Right now, farming was managed by the military, which meant that no land was owned by individuals yet. The Department of Agriculture was not only responsible for growing food, but it was also responsible for growing medicinal plants, fruits, and vegetables. The fifth was the Department of Livestock, which was responsible for all livestock, including the feeding of warhorses and breeding of livestock. In the Heaven Awakened world, not all creatures were spawned by the system, and creatures could also breed. The sixth was the Department of Machinery, which was responsible for all equipment and weapons, as well as all sorts of materials. The seventh was the Department of Medicine, which was not only responsible for refining medicinal pills for cultivation, but it was also responsible for refining medicinal pills and healing people. The eighth was the Department of Military Affairs, which was responsible for all military matters. It was personally managed by Bai Qi, and as Qin village developed, Bai Qi returned to being a general. The ninth was the Department of Management, which was responsible for all matters in the village. It was called the Administrative Department, and it was managed by Li Si. As the Prime Minister of the Qin Empire, Li Si was definitely better than Zhao Fu in this aspect. The 10th was not made public, and only the higher-ups in Qin village would know about the Night Regime. The Night Regime was the assassin organization that Zhao Fu had created. Its full name was Eternal Night, as Zhao Fu wanted it to not be a shadow that hid behind one's back anymore. Instead, it was like an endless night that devoured all light and caused countless people to fear it. The Eternal Night now had 150 people, and these 150 people had all gone through layers of screening and had passed the assassin professions test before being able to change professions. However, most of these people had only obtained the B-grade infant assassin profession, and only 5 of them had obtained the A-grade growth assassin profession. These 5 people were undoubtedly the cream of the crop. As to obtain the A-grade growth assassin profession, one had to kill 3 underworld ghosts. They were not like Zhao Fu, who had all sorts of powerful high-grade buffs. They had all relied on their own strength and did not have any buffs, and they had fought with their lives on the line. Almost all of them had been heavily injured, and they had successfully killed 3 underworld ghosts, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite shocked. Of the 5 people who had obtained the A-grade growth assassin profession, there were 4 men and 1 woman, and Zhao Fu recognized 3 of them. Chapter 108. Of the 3 people he knew, Wang Ergu and Guo Binglin had been called over by Zhao Fu to see if they could pass. Wang Ergu was quite quick-witted, and Guo Binglin was quite thoughtful. Eternal Night was not only an assassination organization, but it was also responsible for gathering intelligence and needed people in all areas. Zhao Fu had taken a liking to Wang Ergu and Guo Binglin, so he had told them to give it a try. In order to live up to Zhao Fu's expectations, the 2 of them had risked their lives and obtained the A-grade assassin profession. Before, the 2 of them had felt quite fortunate about killing 3 underworld ghosts, and they couldn't help but feel quite proud of themselves for killing 3 such powerful creatures at the same time. After all, they knew how terrifying creatures like underworld ghosts were. The other 5 people felt the same way, and they had almost risked their lives to stand out from the other 140 or so people. They were filled with confidence, but when they saw the rankings for the number of underworld ghosts they had killed, they were quite shocked. The person in first place had killed 400 or so underworld ghosts. 400 or so underworld ghosts. Just what kind of terrifying existence was this? Even a single underworld ghost had almost taken their lives, and if they had encountered 400 or so underworld ghosts, they would have died without a trace. What shocked them the most was that the person in first place was Zhao Fu, their majesty. At this moment, they no longer felt that faint sense of pride, and they humbly lowered their heads, not thinking about this matter anymore, even under everyone's envious gazes. The 5 people respectfully knelt on the ground, while Zhao Fu sat on a chair, smiling as he looked at the 5 of them. Zhao Fu looked over at Wang Ergu and Guo Binglin, and his gaze fell on the last person he knew. He said, "Lu Mei, why did you go in for no reason?" Lu Mei rolled her eyes at Zhao Fu and said unhappily, "Your Majesty, why can't I go in? Why can't I? I feel like I'm quite suited to be an assassin." Ha ha! Hearing her words, Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. Hearing this, Lu Mei felt quite unhappy, but she couldn't do anything about it. She could only look at Zhao Fu with hidden bitterness. Zhao Fu stopped laughing. Indeed, Lu Mei had been able to pass the test, and she had also been acknowledged by the profession Change Stone Steel. This meant that she had some talent. Seeing her bitter gaze, Zhao Fu didn't mind and looked at the remaining 2 people. One was a skinny young man, and the other was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. The young man was called Ling Hongfei, and the middle-aged man was called Zhou Qi. Zhao Fu's gaze fell on them. The 2 of them knelt on the ground and respectfully lowered their heads. They were different from Wang Ergu and the others, who Zhao Fu had taken a liking to right from the start. They were just ordinary people, and now that they had received this opportunity and caught Zhao Fu's attention, it meant that they would be put in important positions. 09 small say net. After looking at the 5 of them, Zhao Fu took out the 12 legacy equipment sets and said, "Since you've passed the test, I'll give you the corresponding rewards." These are the 12 legacy equipment sets, which represent 12 different assassin powers. Choose one based on what you're good at or what you like. However, you'll need to think about this carefully because they'll accompany you for the rest of your lives. Hearing this, the 5 of them earnestly nodded. Looking at the 12 equipment sets, they couldn't help but touch them and feel their auras. After they made their choices, Guo Binglin chose the soul equipment set. This was because Zhao Fu had the Assassin Lord's ring and had some understanding of these 12 powers. The soul equipment set was a spiritual type assassin legacy. Lu Mei chose the illusion equipment set, which would give her an illusion type assassin legacy. Wang Ergu chose the decay equipment set, which would give him a poison type assassin legacy and give him control over the decaying poison. Ling Hongfei chose the nether equipment set, which was a ghost type assassin legacy and gave him an ability similar to the undead. Zhou Qi chose the tree equipment set, which was a healing type assassin legacy. The 5 assassin legacies were all quite good, but the most powerful ones were the battle equipment set, kill equipment set, blood equipment set, and battle equipment set. These 4 legacies were all focused on fighting or killing, and the power they received was incredibly terrifying. However, even though these 4 equipment sets were the most powerful, none of the 5 of them chose them. Of course, Zhao Fu wouldn't force them, as they would definitely find an owner who was more suitable for them. After choosing their equipment sets, the 5 of them put them on. Following this, each equipment set gave off a large amount of gray-black aura that entered their bodies, causing their auras to change. This did not just increase their stats, but it also gave them some sort of special power. Of course, Zhao Fu didn't have to worry about what would happen next. He had given them the opportunity, and what would happen next would depend on their own luck and how much they could use the power of the equipment sets. Following this, there was nothing else for Zhao Fu to do, so he went around Qin village and looked at the progress of the town walls. Just like that, the day passed. The next day, a golden light flashed as another S-grade person spawned in Qin village. Following this, Li Si brought him to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu looked at the elegant-looking middle-aged man wearing a scholar's robe and looked at his stats. Name, Meng Howren grade. His title, None profession. Mr. Teacher achievement points, commoner race. Human age, 32, 100 loyalty. 80 stats, strength, 6 intelligence. 10 constitution, 6 agility. 7 cultivation. Stage 0 cultivation technique. None skills. Imparting equipment. Scholar's robe, Mr. Teacher. Zhao Fu couldn't help but say after looking at Meng Howren's stats. Hearing this, Meng Howren respectfully bowed to Zhao Fu and said, "Reporting to your majesty. I'm indeed a Mr. Teacher." Zhao Fu thought for a while and felt that the great Qin village should establish an academy and hire a few teachers to teach the children who had reached school age. In actuality, Zhao Fu was not opposed to the Confucian school. Sometimes, the Confucian school of thought was quite good. Moreover, reading was not just about teaching one how to write and write. It was also about enriching one's mind and allowing one to see further and learn more. Zhao Fu was only against pedantic Confucianism, such as the 8-legged essay of the Ming Dynasty, which completely restricted the thinking of scholars. This caused the East, which had been the most advanced civilization, to gradually fall behind the West. By the end of the Qing Dynasty, almost anyone could bully you, and you couldn't do anything about it. In fact, you could only swallow your anger, and that era was still a humiliation to China. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.